right. Welcome to the Ryan Ripken Show, episode 50. Can't believe it's been 50 episodes since the beginning. Started in September, and I guess they pick up a little bit more when you start doing them twice a week. We haven't been counting the numbers for the special show like we did on Sunday, but if you're here, thank you for being here. And if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Man, it was a rough weekend if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan in Baltimore playing the Chiefs, and we're going to dive into that and a lot more soon. But let's go around and let you know who's in studio with us right now. Let's first off, over to my right, we have Zach Bollinger and Brad Smith.
What up, what up?
Technically, everyone's to your right, actually.
Yeah. Okay, well,
and to my other right, to my right.
Yeah, to my right, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just call everyone by their government names too, Riff. Why don't you do that?
All right, so we have Steven DeSangro right there. There he is. But really, no offense, Rock. It's good for you to be back. But we have our guy Sam and Joku, everybody.
Yeah.
Give Sam a round of applause. Sam and Joku. Sam, how you feeling here?
I'm feeling as good as you can be under the circumstances for sure, but not too bad, not too bad.
Well, that's good to hear. And Sam and Joku, he runs the Ravens Talk podcast. So if you are not following it, I don't know what to tell you. And if you love a good meme right now, though, it's hard to laugh, especially after a tough Ravens game. And then actually, I think he's going to join us a little bit later. Kevin Ostreicher with Locked On Ravens, or we just call him Locked On. He will be joining us later to break down some more with the Baltimore Ravens. So many things to get into here, guys. But before we actually dive into news of the game, let's talk about something that's in the works right now. Rock, we talked about it before going live. Apparently, the Ravens might be losing someone that's been a big part of their success, at least for finding talented players.
Yeah, absolutely. Multiple reports indicate that Joe Ortiz, the Ravens director of player personnel, is likely to join Jim Harbaugh in Los Angeles with the Chargers. So if that's the case, he would go from one Harbaugh, John, to another Jim, and it would be a tough person to lose because you touched on it, Rip. He is a guy that has really helped the Ravens find those talented players over the years and bring guys in, and he's a reason why their drafts have been so successful. He's one of the reasons why. So it would stink to lose Joe Ortiz, but it does look like that he will be joining Jim Harbaugh in LA with the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, this is a big move for the Chargers as well, but obviously, just like Rock was documenting, I mean, the Ravens have done just as good of a job as anybody in the NFL of developing and drafting well and really being able to avoid those years of rebuilding, so to speak.
Yeah, and he's a big part of that. I think a lot of fans were looking at kind of what happened with VDC and Ozzie Newsome and think, oh, well, there's maybe a chance they could keep him. No, it wasn't that type of situation. And once Jim Harbaugh finalized his deal with the Chargers, I thought it was pretty much a moot point. I think he was definitely destined to leave, and no surprises there. He goes to the Chargers.
Yeah, and then by the way, like, this is good for him in his career, right? It stinks just because of what he's meant to the organization, but you can't keep everybody, even in front office roles. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. And guys, I'm trying to get my energy up here. It was a whirlwind. I feel like, well, Zach specifically, I know you probably feel like you got hit by a truck.
Yeah, I feel. I woke up this morning and I don't know what was worse. I think it was, we talked about with just how it felt losing in the AFC Championship. Woke up, wasn't feeling great physically, and then remembered the game and was like, awesome, even better. So
why weren't you feeling great physically?
I had a lot of post-game beers.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. I just wanted the world to know. You were on a warpath yesterday after the Ravens lost.
It is something because you made a tweet about how they're about beers.
Yeah,
not being a safe beer in Baltimore. if the Ravens win, they still weren't safe.
No, they were probably more unsafe. They were probably more unsafe after that loss. It was the alcoholic beverages were dealt with.
They were in win or lose, and unfortunately, like you said, Brett, it was a loss. And Sam, we talked about this before coming on. If you're new to this show, if you just tuned in, Sam and Joku Ravens Talk podcast, we're talking about it because yesterday didn't feel real to me, guys. Like, I didn't truly. I took it all in. Don't get me wrong, but it was so surreal being at the game, Sam, and going, this game is going to send the team to the Super Bowl. Like, it's running through Baltimore. And even though we understood it, you knew it was on the line, it was just almost hard to believe that that's what was actually taking place yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, and when I was there, I was at the game, obviously, and I took it all in. I got there, doors open at 1:00. I was in there at 1:01 p.m. I didn't tailgate. I just wanted to go in there and just take it all and absorb the fact. And as the fans trickled in, you saw the energy rise. It was like a bubbling, kind of like when you shake a bottle of Coke and you just open it up and you could just see it. And as soon as Ray Lewis and Nary came out there, the place went crazy. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is when the Ravens punched their ticket in Baltimore. I mean, shut down the AFC, of course, the Super Bowl champions previously, and punched their ticket. Of course, it didn't end up that way. But
I still had the
Chiefs.
faith when, like, I was actually starting to lose some of that faith. Like, I don't know, maybe somewhere around the second half of the third quarter.
yeah,
I was just obviously for looking back for a whole bunch of reasons, and we'll get into that. But when Terrell Suggs came out in that fourth quarter, or end of the third, and like the crowd went crazy, he comes out of the tunnel, and 50 Cent starts playing, like I was losing my mind. That was awesome. And then it was just like go down the field. That's when Zay fumbles the ball. It's like,
Yeah.
God damn it, man.
yeah.
Not even T Sizzle could come in and save the day.
Well, and it just felt like all the former greats. It felt like was there. Jonathan Ogden did was the honorary captain. Michael Phelps gave the game ball. Then you had Ray, you had Ed, you had
Matt
Steve
fucking
Sizzle.
Stover was there.
Matt Stover.
Matt Stover, legend.
Don't
man.
forget about T-Pain.
And T-Pain. But you know what? He didn't play Best Love Song, and I'm really upset about
Here's
it.
the other look, I wasn't going to bring up T-Pain, but this is what pisses me off about T-Pain. That motherfucker was wearing
man.
red, black, and white.
Yeah,
Was not even wearing,
Wasn't wearing purple.
purple. Couldn't even just wear black, right? Like,
Wow.
hey, I'm going to be neutral, wear black. No, you got to go out there and support T Sweezy instead of the
boy.
Ravens.
Well, and then just when we thought you weren't going to drop, you only saved that for calling Rocco that, but now it's
Nope, T.I. deserves it now too.
T-Pain.
T-Pain.
brother.
T-Pain.
T-Pain.
T-Pain. Oh my God, I sound like the old people
Yeah,
at the game.
you are.
Oh
But I-
my god.
Woof. Yes. and
He's in love with the stripper. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, it was, but you know what? Regardless of it, it was just. Maybe I was expecting more with T-Pain because I love that was a part of the childhood, right? But maybe it was just because it's not. I didn't hear every song that I wanted, and the Ravens didn't win. It just wasn't happening the way you wanted.
Hey,
But what?
I love T.I. by the way.
T.I. is great.
Shout out
You
T.I.
need to come back and
T.I. is underrated.
Yeah.
Like hardcore underrated.
I mean, well, if we want to start this
Hey,
show,
you can do whatever you like.
If we, great song. We could talk about Ti for a long
Bro,
time about what
you're
song.
officially in dad mode, just messing up people's names like that. Like that's ridiculous.
You stop talking.
Yeah. All right. You know what? You know who's gonna stop or who's gonna start talking? It's me. Let's talk about this because we have Sam for up until 7 p.m. because we want Sam to make sure he gets on with the rest of his evening. But we wanted him here because look, we just mentioned all the reasons. The city was buzzing. We were around the lots. We were on lot patrol. Everyone was ecstatic. But let's talk about the game here for a second, right? And the first thing, the narrative. Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs, the team that everyone's trying to beat. And it felt like this was the year that they were not as strong as they were. And the Ravens are this team of quote unquote destiny. They're absolutely demolishing the teams in their way. They felt like they were in a groove. They were in the right spot. You're having the game in Baltimore. Everything's supposed to go your way. And all of a sudden, in a moment, in 3 hours, 3.5 hours, season's over. It's done. And now we have a poll up, Brad, right? Before we talk a little bit more about a discussion here. But you have a poll up right now for our listeners.
Yeah, I wish I would have worded this a little bit better because I know that like a large demographic of our fans are from Baltimore Ravens fans. But I think the answer is probably obvious for most of you if you had to guess. Who should feel the worst from yesterday's loss? I put Ravens or Lions, and most of you are answering Ravens, 82%. Here's what I'll say about that. Ravens had a terrible game. Lamar Jackson probably arguably had the worst game of the season, and it just so happened to be in the AFC Championship. But if you were to tell me you were up 24-7 and then lost that game, I don't know, man. If I'm Eminem, I saw him giving the middle finger to a lot of San Francisco fans. He should be giving it to probably a lot of the Detroit team as well, personnel as well. I know he's not because he's loyal, he's faithful, but I don't know, man. That was rough for Dan Campbell and the crew.
I really thought they were going to pull it off.
Me too. I was like, let's go. Because as soon as the Ravens lost, I was instantly a Lions fan.
Yeah.
And then I got let down twice yesterday.
It really was one of those moments where it was like, in my head, I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? At least I can root for Dan Campbell. Like I can have that story going in. And then you're like, okay, I'll feel good for the Lions. And I was like, oh, they're going to Lions. I was like, wow. I was like, oh, there it is.
Yep.
There it is.
Same old Lions.
Yeah. And you just that was one of those games where, especially when the Lions were going for it, not taking the points, you knew that that's their type of mentality. That's what they do. So you didn't question it, but you, at the same time I was watching, I was like, damn, this is what the 49ers want you to do. Exactly. They want you to not take the points. They want you to have to go reaching for it. And then they just crawled back in and went and punched their ticket.
They crawled back in, and in the blink of an eye in the second half, they went from a 24-7 game to it being tied and taking the lead. It was in the blink of an eye, just like it was in the blink of an eye that the Ravens, it felt like, actually, we're going to save this for later, but it felt like what the Niners did in the second half was what the Ravens, everyone was waiting for that switch to go off. The offense to just put the game away, but it didn't happen. And it leads to the question, and we appreciate everyone tuning in here. And Sam, I'm going to open this up when we come out of this talking. I want your opinion first. And Darren, we appreciate the question. What's up, Ryan and the crew? This one hurts. 2019 all over again. This one stings because even worse than 19 because the game in 19, they got punched in the mouth from the beginning. And it was the Titans just took over, and the Ravens were always trying to claw back, and it just felt like that we didn't know where the team didn't know what hit them. This game, it was the game's there. Yeah, they've made adjustments. We're right there, but the offense and the Ravens, and we'll talk about the execution wasn't there, and we'll get into that. But of course, now we're going to have to hear this narrative. But today, Stephen A. Smith on ESPN on First Take with Shannon Sharp was asked the question on, was it more about Patrick Mahomes going back to the Super Bowl or Lamar and the Ravens, unfortunately, falling short? So let's
story. Mahomes going back to the Super Bowl or Lamar Jackson falling short?
I think it's Lamar Jackson falling short. I hate to say it, but I believe that is the case. Mahomes is great. He's phenomenal. He's the greatest ever. We get all of that. They ended up scoring 17 points, even though that doesn't speak to how effective they were when it really, really counted and what him and Kelce were doing. But the big story is Lamar Jackson. Ladies and gentlemen, with all due respect, it was a choke job. Let's just call it what it is. What is the definition of a choke job, Shannon and D.O.? It's doing what you always do, what you're accustomed to doing, until the moment arrives, and then you don't. That is the epitome. That is the definition of what we're talking about here.
Well, and then there it is, right? This is the narrative once again that even though the Ravens got past the divisional round and they win that home playoff game, and Lamar and the Ravens were spectacular, then you are this team that head and shoulders, I think, Sam, we believe the Ravens were the best team on paper, no doubt, playing the Chiefs. Yeah. But we're leaving this game now, and I don't blame people for having this narrative. I'm annoyed by it, but Stephen A. has the right to say it because, once again, the Baltimore Ravens unfortunately let a great opportunity slip away.
Yeah, and it's really, really hard to disagree with the guy right now. I mean, it'll be hard for me to sit here and say it wasn't a choke job. Yeah, it's usually easy to disagree with. Very easy. I mean, I make a living pretty much off of making these analysts look stupid. But man, this is not about Patrick Mahomes at all. I mean, the Ravens held him to 2 touchdowns pretty much. He threw one to Kelce, which was a phenomenal catch by Kelce.
But my God, where he stood back for like 10 seconds or whatever. That was Ryan and I watched that together, and it was just like, that was unbelievable.
Yeah, how the hell did that happen? And of course, but to your point, they made some unbelievable plays, and it just felt like on the other side, the Ravens weren't.
Yeah, the Ravens figured it out in the second half. The first half, the game plan was pretty much, let's stop the intermediate stuff because that's what pretty much Mahomes has been doing all year. And Andy Reid just decided to throw a bunch of screens, short stuff, and let the yak stuff work. So in the second half, the Ravens definitely tightened up on that, played a lot more man, had a lot more Kyle Hamilton splash plays, and it was really up to the offense. I mean, we were all waiting for the second half for Lamar Jackson to do what he does best, and the Ravens faltered. Now, I don't think that falls completely on Lamar, though he does shoulder some of the blame, but this is pretty much a choke job by the offensive unit for sure, I'd have to say.
Yep. And I think we're going to dive into this a little bit more. And again, we can look at this and it's not just it's a team sport, right? But the quarterbacks are going to take a lot of credit and a lot of the blame. And we know that Lamar is going to get that. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes deserves a lot of credit. But the story in that game on that side, Zach, was Steve Spagnuolo in the defense for the Chiefs because they had a tremendous plan in place. Now, granted, though, we have another clip here, Brad. I think it's a good time to talk about it. Yeah. The game plan from the Chiefs was tremendous. I don't know if the same can be at least said or felt on the Ravens side. And Rex Ryan did not mince words with how he felt about the Ravens' offensive game plan.
The stupidest game plan I've ever seen. And you know what, Greg Roman, every single person needs to apologize to you because you got blamed for everything about what was wrong in Baltimore. And it wasn't you because this new guy that we praised the hell out of.
Todd Monken.
Yeah, Todd Monken. By the way,
With the new guy.
you don't have Tom Brady. Do you realize your quarterback is Lamar Jackson, not Tom Brady? What in the hell are you doing dropping back 82% of the time? This is the team that led the NFL in rushing attempts. They had 6 whopping rushing attempts to the running backs. So Spags like, I'll put every little dude. Hey, RC, you go play D tackle because they ain't going to run the ball. What the hell are you doing?
So there it is right now. It was no secret, and we'll get more on here on the stats of it. But if you watch the game, the drive that the Ravens scored their first touchdown on, Zach, it was the 4th and 1, Lamar designed run, big play. Right after that, Gus Edwards, and then obviously Lamar escapes. It's a scramble drill touchdown, but it was 2 plays where the Ravens had big chunk runs, and it felt like, okay, that was it. It was going to get going. And then after that moment, Gus Edwards had 2 carries the rest of the game.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Rex Ryan talked about. It was a disgusting game plan going in. You can't just abandon what you have set the tone as, your bread and butter. We talked all week leading into it. The Chiefs were the second worst team in giving up
The run.
Yeah, against the run.
Gus Edwards was running 6 yards a carry?
Yeah. His first one was 15 yards. He went 15 yards his first carry, and then they abandoned it. But I do want to make one thing clear. Yesterday did not in any chance change how I feel about Greg Roman.
1,000%.
No, yeah.
If you think that yesterday proved that Greg Roman wasn't the issue, you did not watch. One, I guess we're throwing out the rest of this year where we saw how the offense evolved and how just different ways that Monken was able to use weapons. And then I get it. We have to overreact after these big games. But he hit the nail on the head in every point until he said we owe Greg Roman an apology.
Yeah, here's what else I'll say to that, Zach, and just kind of piggyback on what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think Dan Orlovsky, a couple of the other guys made really great points, was that for the amount of times they were dropping back, you made third down predictable every single time. Every single time. It was really, and I would love for somebody on the coaching staff, whether it be Harbaugh, Monken, somebody answer the question as to why they only ran the ball 11 times when you were the leading rushing team in the NFL. It made zero sense to me, especially to your point, to where like if there's a weakness in the Chiefs defense, it was the rushing game.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it all the way up leading to our game. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to me. Like, give me a legitimate explanation as to why the rushing game was not there.
Yeah, and the Texans, you look back to the Texans game, the Texans were a very stout run defense, and the Ravens decided, okay, we don't care that they're a good run defense. We're going to still do what we do and establish the run and take, over that way. And then we get to Kansas City, who you're like, you think going in, oh, what a perfect matchup for this Ravens offense. They just can run the ball, do whatever. Exactly. And Gus Edwards gets 3 rushing attempts.
Yeah, and so that was actually going to lead me into this point that, Sam, I want to ask you. Did it felt like, and again, this is, I respect the hell out of the Ravens coaching staff because I do think it's one of the best coaching units in the NFL, period. Yeah. But did it feel like that they were almost trying to outsmart Kansas City by, Zach, you brought up going to your identity, that Kansas City thought that they would run the ball and they were going to do all this. Yeah. And instead, they're like, well, maybe this will catch them by surprise. But the reality was the Chiefs just seemed like they were prepared for whatever the Ravens had. And what clearly it was not running the football, which we expected.
Yeah, I think it's that for sure. And also the Ravens were terrified. Once the Chiefs were up 14 points, when they got the 14, the 2 touchdowns, it was 14-7, but they scored 2 touchdowns. It looked like they were doing it at ease. The Ravens are thinking, okay, we have to match their firepower. We have to keep throwing the ball to keep the score close because we're not sure if the defense can handle it. But once the second half rolled around and it's clear that the defense has solved the problem, I'm thinking, okay, let's go back to the bread and butter, run the ball. I thought Gus Edwards was hurt. I thought that Gus Edwards was injured. I looked at him. I was like, oh, he looks fine. I see Justice Hill for 90% of the snaps in the first half, and I'm paraphrasing, I haven't looked at the stats for sure, but man, it just made no sense. So I think, and this happened in the past, not in this big a stage, but the Ravens got scared. They reacted wrong, and they said, okay, we need to throw the football. We're going to use Lamar Jackson that way, and it was a huge mistake that cost him a Super Bowl.
Well, and I agree. And you know what? And this is for the first part of it. He's going to make some appearances, but he's going to be on for the rest of our show after Sam has to hop off. But we got Kevin Ostreicher just lurking behind in the scenes here.
Oyster sucker.
But it's a great time, Kevin, to bring you back on here because I know you have the rushing stats here to back up what we were just talking about.
Yeah, I do. I'm here, and it's tough because you look at what happened yesterday, guys, and in the Lamar Jackson era, this is a run-first football team. The Ravens, in the Lamar Jackson era, there has never been a game below 16 carries. They haven't gone below 16 carries in a game 2017. That's over 6 years ago. That was the last time the Ravens had less than 16 carries in a game. This is only the third time in the Lamar Jackson era that there were 16 carries in a game. And the two other times, the first one was before Lamar took over, Joe Flacco in 2018. Mm-hmm. And the second time he was injured. So this is the first time Lamar was the starter in a game where they had 16 carries. And it's just so disheartening because the Kansas City defensive line, they were also beat up. They had no Derek Nottie in this game. Chris Jones was beat up for the majority of this game. And we saw with the sample, it was a very small sample size, right? 6 total running back carries. We saw that they were getting some chunks on there. Now, Justice Hill had 3 for 3, but after that 15-yard run by Gus Edwards, we really never saw something like that again. And I think that you talk about a team beating themselves. Well, the Ravens certainly took themselves out of the run game situation where if you're a defense, you want to make a team one-dimensional. You want to take a part of their defense or a part of their offense away. The Ravens took a part of their offense away themselves. And that, to me, is just where it made no sense.
I agree. And thank you, Kevin. We're going to bring you back on here for another stat here in a moment. And that was one thing we were going to bring on with Justice Hill, missed at least 3 blocks. I mean, we were up there, Brad, we were talking about him being around. And we got a chance to run into some former players. Yeah. And the 2 biggest surprises that people said were the lack of the run game involvement and then the lack of blitz protection. And unfortunately, it was either missing on protections like Justice Hill. Unfortunately, they missed it. Even on the play that Lamar Jackson extended, Gus missed the block, I believe. And then Lamar extended, kept it going. Gus got back in there and they made a big play. But it just seemed like the Ravens weren't ready for that type of pressure. It was a great game plan by the Chiefs. One thing I do wonder, Sam, Mark Andrews coming back.
Oh, yeah.
And Isaiah Likely, and we've talked about this on the program here, I did not expect a lot from Mark in the sense of the injury. It was a great confidence boost, but you could tell he was not going to be at 100%. Right. But Isaiah Likely on the flip side really did not have an impact on this game at all. So 2 of your primary weapons were not being involved. And the other part of it, and this was either at halftime or going to the third quarter, the second leading receiver for the Baltimore Ravens was Lamar Jackson after he caught that ball. Yeah. So do you think there's something to that, or do you think it's because they thought Mark was coming back and they were trying to use more 2 tight end sets? Just something seemed. So I see people saying, "Why now? Why change away from the script?" Could that be some type of way of exploiting a vulnerable, Kansas City middle of the field?
Yeah, and that was my thought process going in. If they're going to bring back Mark Andrews, they're going to play a 2 tight end set. They're going to use that to their advantage because the Chiefs are obviously going to have the nickel package with an extra safety or corner to combat the 2 great pass catchers in Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. And then with that nickel package, you can run the ball down their throat like you've been doing all season pretty much. And even in 2019 when they did that, very much so. But not the case. And it just seemed like, I'm not sure. I don't want to say that Mark Andrews kind of messed up the rhythm of things, but it's hard to deny looking at what just happened. So I'll have to look at the film more closely this week. But I think having him not feature Isaiah Likely a bunch and Todd Monken I'm talking about is just it's a big error they're going to be thinking about for the next 7 months.
Andrews also had a pretty key dropped pass as well.
Yes, he
I
did.
don't think anybody's talking about all that much. So I'm not saying that rust is a thing, but just on top of all the other things that were going wrong, Mark Andrews certainly wasn't quite himself yesterday either.
No.
Yeah, and so, Rock, I wanted to switch this to you, and then I'm going to give Kevin a little bit of time to get this stat behind it. But the other part maybe that the Ravens right out the get-go, the Chiefs go right down the field. And I mean, Patrick Mahomes, when he had to make some great plays, extend the plays, and anything that Travis Kelce worked yesterday, the 4th and 2 on the first drive, the great back shoulder throw with Kyle Hamilton, I thought it was pretty good coverage, great play, great catch. The Chiefs dominated time of possession, Rock. Like it was, you looked up and it was like, wow, this first half's almost over. And it felt like the Ravens offense was hardly on the field.
Yeah, and it's not great. They nearly an entire quarter more than the Ravens. We're talking 15 minutes. So I think it was 14 and some change that they outpossessed the Ravens in this game. And that cannot happen. It really can't. And it's like you looked up every 3rd down or 4th down. I mean, there were some misses there, but they were converting and they just extended drives. And that's what Patrick Mahomes is able to do. I'll say this though, man. If you were to tell me yesterday before the game even started that the Ravens defense was going to shut out Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense in the second half, they weren't going to score a single point, not even a field goal, I'd be like, all right, Ravens are on to the Super Bowl.
I would have started looking. Yeah, I was going to say, I was looking up Vegas tickets. I'd be looking up
your tickets.
Yeah,
exactly. But that goes back to the run game or lack thereof. We're talking about a Chiefs team that allowed 182 yards on the ground to the Bills the week before.
Yes.
I mean, they just ran the ball. And the Ravens, they had 42 rushes against the Texans. Why are you getting away from what got you here? Mm-hmm. What got you the win in the divisional round and what got you to the AFC Championship game? I think it was 16 total rushes, but 11 by design. And on top of that, why are you signing Dalvin Cook, bringing him in for the Texans game if he's not even going to touch the field and get a carry in this game?
Yeah.
It just I'm not saying Dalvin Cook would have been the answer in this game, win or lose, but like these are the questions that we need to be asking right now. Like what was the deal right there?
He had a couple of plays in the Texans game to where I was like, okay, they're starting to get Dalvin Cook kind of involved and like he's going to be a bigger part of the next game. And yeah, to your point, like he was just not there at all. And it just the biggest head scratcher as to why they got away from their own identity and taking away everything that got them there.
Yeah, and just to talk on this, I saw a couple comments in here about doubling Travis Kelce. It felt like it was a lot of one-on-one. You guys know that Travis Kelce, I think it was when Patrick Mahomes targeted Travis Kelce, he was 11 for 11, I believe.
Yes.
And you knew that was the one guy that they wanted to go to constantly. So you have that side of it. And on offense, just fell a little bit off. And then Graven, you're right. We got our guy in the building here.
Yeah,
I'm showing him
your
Graven.
guy.
That's hilarious.
He said my guy's on a world tour.
Gotta be.
He's got to be.
And
we are glad you are in here, Sam. And actually, Kevin, to bring home the time of possession, do you have that stat handy so we can just give it a little bit more of a background to everyone? And again, if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. We're talking about this Ravens and Chiefs game right now. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, so in terms of pure time of possession, Chiefs just absolutely dominated when you're talking about pure time possession. 37-30 for the Chiefs compared to 22-30 for the Ravens. If you want to break it down a little further than that, in the first half, the Chiefs held the ball for 20 minutes, right about 21 minutes compared to right around 9 minutes for the Ravens. So it was a little bit better in the second half, but I feel like as the game went on and we got into the second half, Kansas City was definitely trying. They got a little conservative. They were trying to run the clock down. And I think we were kind of talking about it. I forget which one of us made the point, Brad, it might have been you, where, they were trying to keep Lamar off the field. And that's one of the best defenses you can have against Lamar. Is just don't put him back on the field. Don't let him get in a rhythm. And Kansas City just absolutely destroyed Baltimore in time possession. And one more thing, I've triple checked this, so I'm sure it's right. The Ravens.
If you checked it 3 times, then you're fine.
I have. Yeah, I might have to check it a 4th time because
you read it over and read it again. You said you read it over and read it again.
Yeah, and I'm about to do it again after this.
There you go,
I can't believe it. But the Ravens did not have a drive in this game over 5 minutes. There was no drive for the Ravens in this game over 5 minutes. And it's something where, again, if you run the ball, you control the clock just a little bit more, maybe stuff happens. But I don't know, just crazy stats all the way around. And a team that usually dominates in time of possession, or at least is a lot closer than they were, got dominated by Kansas City.
They did. And to put it in this perspective, and we're talking about this was a plan for the Chiefs. They got quick passes to get it out, high percentage, and then they were going to run the football. Isaiah Pacheco alone had 24 carries. 24 just from Isaiah Pacheco. And you could tell that the Chiefs were going to go in there. And this was, Sam, this was my feeling here. I felt that Patrick Mahomes did what he needed to do early. The Ravens adjusted. But he's even said in the past, he goes, with how well our defense is playing, I'm just not going to make the mistake to mess up. And that was a big part of it. And we saw in the 49ers game later on in the evening, the Gibbs fumble, I believe, was a big turning point. Mahomes, you can say what you want about it, say he didn't do enough. The Ravens defense did enough to win this game. But Mahomes at least did his part to trust his defense. And unfortunately, the Ravens didn't capitalize, and the Kansas City defense came up with a big player, big stop over and over again.
And that's exactly right. And I give full props to Mahomes for that, because I believe if the Ravens had somehow found a way to tie this game up, I think you would have saw him be a little more aggressive with the football. But he understood the game. He understood that, right now my defense is playing very well. As long as I don't make a huge mistake to turn the tide in the Ravens' favor, all I have to do is really dink and dunk as the game plan has been dictating, and let the apples fall where they may. So the Ravens, in that regard, I think we talked about this ad nauseum throughout the week. The team that obviously turns the football over more is going to lose this game. And unfortunately, was the Ravens. That huge toss in the end zone by Lamar Jackson in triple coverage, the fumble with Zay Flowers, those things. It's just too much to overcome, especially in that big game.
You know what's crazy, Sam?
Yeah.
Is that like 3 turnovers to 0, and it was still a game.
Still a game.
It was still a game. That's the crazy part. We could have easily won. We could have easily won that game if one of those. So like if Zay Flowers had not fumbled the ball in the end zone, we could have won the game with at -2.
Yeah,
that would have been insane.
Yeah, and I think what's even crazier is it was still such a close game. When you look back, let's say Zay gets in the end zone instead of fumbling. It's a 3-point game with 14 minutes left.
Yeah.
And it did not feel like it should have been a 3-point game. No matter, even when it was 17-7, you just sat there and you were like, the way the offense was going and the way that the Chiefs were playing, you were like, it felt like it was insurmountable. But at the same time, you looked up and you're like, we score here and it's a 1-possession game. So it was such a weird mind, trick on yourself where it didn't feel like it was a game, but at the same time, you're like, we're right there.
It felt like that they just needed the one play, and it just felt like it was one step away constantly. And I turned to Brad and I said, Brad, if the Ravens, if on that, when Zay fumbled the goal line, if they score right here, they're going to win the game.
Yeah.
I truly believe
we
that.
both felt that way.
Yeah. And Rock, I think you have another stat here on the turnovers.
It's not really. No. It's not really
a comment. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just a comment on just the rushing and them getting away from it, because it's something that John Harbaugh was asked about after the game. The question was 16 rushing attempts is definitely not what you guys normally do. And Harbaugh said, it was that kind of game, I'd say. That's the way it worked out, the way the game went. What are your thoughts on that? You guys just take it away from there.
I think for me personally, that's not how the game went. It was, they got in panic mode because it felt like at the beginning of the game that Patrick Mahomes was going to continue to just score points, and there was no adjustments made after the defense shut them down for the next 3 quarters. I think that and we saw this all year. I was like starting to finally feel like, the beginning of the season, we were like, oh man, here we go again. Ravens can't figure out how to adjust in the second half. They blow leads right down in the fourth quarter. And that wasn't happening the second half of this year. The adjustments were being made, and we saw that in the Texans game, right? It was 10-10 going into the half. They made the adjustments and then blew them out.
Great adjustments, by the way, too.
Right.
Great adjustments.
And there was just no adjustments made in the second half of this game. It was close enough to where you didn't have to throw the ball over the place. Harbaugh and Monken were making play calls as if they were down by 3 scores.
Exactly. And I think if the Ravens had scored that touchdown with Zay Flowers, I think they might have reverted back to the rushing. Okay, now we're in a comfortable place where we can start doing what we do, but they panic at a 10-point deficit. And I think that's a huge mistake with the way the defense is playing. It just blows my mind, the game plan.
It's inexcusable, but they had never been in that situation this season. That was the largest halftime deficit to try to overcome. So I wonder if that played into it in the locker room. They were trying to do too much in the second half, and that's really what it seemed like.
Yeah, and it feels like for the longest time that the narrative is that Baltimore can't win the way that they play, right? Lamar Jackson, the way that he runs too much, and almost felt like and it's been talked around here and it's out there even in social media, I think people have similar thoughts. It almost felt like the Ravens were trying to prove we're going to win this certain way instead of doing it what makes us so dominant. And that was running, play action off the run and being able to do more. And unfortunately, just didn't turn out that way. And despite all that, though, despite this game plan, guys, the Ravens still had 2 big turnovers in the red zone. And that could have changed the entire game as it is. And I think, Kevin, you had a turnover stat here to put it all together.
And I think with the Ravens, how good they were at forcing turnovers. The Ravens were tops in the league defensively in turnovers. They did not have one. It kind of speaks to how the regular season, if you're good in the regular season, you don't perform in the playoffs, you can have something like this happen. Kansas City was not a good turnover team the entire regular season. They were 27th in the league, or tied for it in turnovers, 17 turnovers total. They had those 3, and that's almost 20% of their regular season total in 17 games in one game right there. And we kind of talked all season about how the Ravens, they had kind of figured out the turnovers a little bit. They're protecting the ball a lot better. And, should Zay have dove for the end zone? I think that's maybe a different conversation in terms of him reaching that ball out or not. I mean, look, he dove for the end zone and tried to get the ball across. He wasn't being careless with the football. He was making a football play. And look, that's a heck of a play by L'Jarius Sneed. That's one of the better forced fumbles I've seen, and it's kind of reminiscent of not a lot of people can make that play. So I'm not kind of getting on Zay Flowers for that, but the Chiefs found a way to force turnovers in a spot that was the biggest of their season when they weren't having it in the regular season. It happened for them in the postseason, and sometimes it's just that type of game. But again, I would just love to know what would have happened if they ran the ball a little bit more, because I'm with everybody else there. I can't get over just how this went. Turnovers are killers, but so is not running the ball when that's your bread and butter and taking yourself out of that dimension.
Hey, Kev, what was the thing we talked about on your podcast, Locked On Ravens, talking about the only team that could beat the Ravens? And I don't want to discredit the Chiefs. They had a great game plan going into this. They forced turnovers when they needed to. They made plays when they needed to, and they ultimately got the win, and that's why they're on to the Super Bowl. But who did we say was the only team that could beat the Ravens this season?
Themselves.
Yep, the Ravens. And they did that time after time after time again in this game. They really did, with the turnovers, not running the ball, just multiple ways. And they lost this game themselves.
Well, I understand that part, and I guess I agree that the mistakes, the Ravens couldn't get out of their way in their mistakes, especially the triple coverage throw, the end zone. That was tough. I know people were saying about, could that have been a pass interference? They're missing calls. We're going to talk about that here in a second about officiating.
Yeah.
That is not the reason why the Ravens lost this game. The Chiefs deserved to win this game because they made less mistakes. And people can look at it. The Chiefs had a minus 11 turnover differential on the season, Sam. The Ravens were plus 12. And in a game that's a 7-point game, the Ravens had 3 chances, 2 of which would have gotten points for the team. You lose a 7-point game. That, if we're just going to keep it simple, people that we talk to, job security is ball security is job security. Taking care of the football is the most important thing. And you can talk about calls that weren't there or should have been there. And we even talked about it, Sam. The Ravens got some breaks on some calls, the holding call coming back. And I think that there was a Chris Jones holding or tripping call in the end zone. So I'm not trying to say that playing homer here, but the Ravens didn't do enough to win this game.
Yeah, I don't blame officiating at all. I don't even I mean, there might have been 1 or 2 calls that could have went the Ravens' way, but this is a Ravens issue. I mean, Rocco mentioned it. I'm not trying to discredit the Chiefs, but the Chiefs had no business winning this game. The Chiefs, you didn't score in the second half, and you scored 17 points. I mentioned it on my podcast. If you hold the opposing team to less than 20 points and you're scoring 30 points, you're going to win every game, obviously. But if you're not scoring at least 24 points in the National Football League, you have no business being in the Super Bowl. So the Ravens definitely did it to themselves. The officiating was meh. But it's the NFL. This has been going on for
95 yards. The Ravens, 95 penalty yards. The Ravens took, and then to I think the Chiefs 25. I want to say, but the other thing too is that I was going to say. Just escaped me. So never mind.
Dude,
Don't you love it?
You know what's crazy? looking at the schedule and seeing the results. They have 3 17-10 losses this season.
Oh,
One against the Chiefs, one against the Steelers where the backups were playing, and then one against the Steelers at their place.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, damn.
Oh wow.
And this is
That
reminiscent of that
score-
Colts game.
Yeah,
Every
17. Like you put up 10 points, you're not going to win a football
No
game,
way.
No.
especially against Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
It's
you know,
like,
Well, that's what I was going to say. So, with the 17 points, Ravens have scored on average 26.5 all year.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get more than 10.
I think they were the fourth highest offense, like as far as like points scored. Like they were fourth or fifth in points per game, and they just, I mean, just didn't do it.
It stings. And honestly, Sam, you brought up the Colts game. That was where my mind, the fumble at the goal line reminded me when Steve McNair threw that pick in the end zone against the Colts back in 06.
Yeah.
And then for those that are tuning in, by the way, we're talking about the Ravens and Chiefs. We're going to talk about the Lions and 49ers and some other Ravens news at the top of the hour moving forward. But since we have Sam and Joku here, Ravens Talk Podcast, Sam, to me, that was a deflating moment because that 06 Colts Ravens game in Baltimore, for those that forget, divisional game, that defense was lights out. They held Peyton Manning to 0 touchdowns, but the Ravens the same way made crucial mistakes, specifically that Steve McNair one. And that's how it felt yesterday. I was like, man, this one to me, I don't know about you, Sam, this one probably loss-wise hurts the most. And I'll even put that up there. The Billy Cundiff one was the most shocking. Lee Evans back-to-back. This one might be the one that hurts the most given where the Ravens were this season.
This is definitely, without question, the worst loss in the history of the franchise. Easily. Not even close. The Ravens are never, at least in the Lamar Jackson era, in my opinion, ever going to have a team this dominant again.
No.
Just based off cap space and what you have to do talent-wise to get guys in here. Just not going to happen.
I was going to say, it wasn't the worst playoff performance.
Yeah, not the worst playoff performance by far. No, this is the worst playoff loss because of how great you were as a team.
Yeah.
How average the Chiefs were. No offense to the Chiefs kingdom, but it just, everything wasn't lining right for the Ravens. And I don't think in the Lamar Jackson era, you're going to have a team this dominant again. Not to say they can't reach the playoff and the Super Bowl again because the Chiefs have done it with Patrick Mahomes, but man, this is just huge letdown.
Yeah, they say, like, people say all the time, it's like, we'll be back or they'll be back. In the NFL, the window sometimes, you guys make fun of me for doing this, but like,
What was that?
it's a small window. It's a small window, man. Like, it really is. It's like,
It is small.
Look at the Eagles last year. They got.
Sorry, Rocco.
Grow up, Rip. Aren't you like 30 now?
I didn't say, I just said it's a small window. I was agreeing with you. It's small.
I'm not someone who believes that they can't get back and that there's not a chance that they won't get back next season. They could go even further next season. Who knows? I mean, it's a possibility with the talent
But
they
it's
have.
so hard,
But
man.
the free
I mean,
agents that they're losing,
Yeah.
the coaches
20 of
that they
them.
could potentially lose, you're losing Joe Ortiz, who is a great part of what the Ravens do as an organization. But you look at the free agents, it's going to be hard to get back. You're going to have to go above and beyond next season and hope that your team, hope the draft goes well, which Eric DeCosta's done a solid job of not only drafting recently, just picking guys up off the couch, bringing them in, and Kyle Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowney this year. But how many Kyle Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowneys are going to be out there in years to come, just like coming in and performing at such a high level? Like, you bring them in, you hope that they're going to perform the way these guys performed, and maybe they do half of that. Maybe they overperform. But like you really never know. And the hope for this team, of course, is obviously they want to get back to this position. It is going to sting for a while for this fan base, for this coaching staff, for the players, for this city, because of what they could have accomplished. And to your point, Sam, this loss does suck.
Yeah.
It does for them.
Yes.
Somebody made a comment. I'll let you get to it, Ryan, in just a second. But somebody made a comment that this was worse. I've been seeing this a lot. So this was worse than 2011. I don't know if y'all forgot what it felt like in 2011 to see Billy Cundiff miss that kick.
Oh no.
But,
I fully remember.
But
fully remember.
I and maybe it was because I was there, Ryan, last night, and there's obvious recency bias. But the pain after the Lee Evans drop and the Billy Cundiff miss, and then seeing T Sizzle say, "Oh my God," after he missed it, it's like all slow motion. That felt pretty bad too. This is up there. I don't know. I just feel like we were so close to beating the Patriots that year that it's tough.
Look at that.
Tough to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, thank you, House. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
no, so I'm not. So I think it's the context of what we're talking about, right? At least the Ravens, you are going into New England, the team that you are trying to beat. All this, and the part that's frustrating with that game is You went from winning the game to overtime to what the hell happened. So that's what I'm saying. The most shocking was that 2011 game. No doubt about it, where you're sitting there. I remember I sat for an hour after the game, didn't move in 2011. It's like, what the hell just happened? This game here in Baltimore, it was, man, I don't remember a more complete Ravens team over across the board. And when you looked at it, this is why you have to play the game. But man, of all these things, didn't you just feel that this Ravens team beat the Chiefs? Who was going to be left to beat them? It just felt like the Chiefs are that Achilles heel for almost anyone except Joe Burrow and Tom Brady in the playoffs. It's the only teams that have beaten Patrick Mahomes. And I hate to even bring that up. And it stinks for me, Sam. And I know we're going to get you out of here in a second, but I wanted to close with this. So where do the Ravens go from here as far as a positive? I agree with everyone, by the way, and we love the Ravens. This has nothing to do about Lamar Jackson as a player. He was the best player in the league. It's a tremendous coaching staff, tremendous players. But unfortunately, Sam, what the Ravens do now in the regular season, if they win another AFC North championship, they're the number 1 seed. It's awesome. Everyone will be absolutely ecstatic, but no one's going to really care because in this city, for this franchise, it's get to the Super Bowl, and anything less is going to be a disappointment.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys brought up 2011 because we all know what happened in 2012, right? They came back and they overcame the hurdle and won the Super Bowl. And yeah, you're right. The Patriots game in 2011 did sting more because you just felt it, especially in the end, they were going to win that game. But in this case, it just felt like, stars were aligning. Everyone thought they were going to win and they lost. So, and recency bias may have something to do with it. So yeah, moving forward, I think the Ravens just going to have to churn their way back up. I think the likelihood of them keeping Todd Monken is high. And I talked about it earlier in the season. It looks like they're going to build on that offense, and it's going to be less and less like Greg Roman's offense moving forward. So unfortunately, that might look like more passing. And I think we saw a little bit of that in this game. So I think the Ravens are going to be okay. It's just going to be way harder this upcoming season. You got Jim Harbaugh with Justin Herbert, that combo.
Yeah,
you got,
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, you got Joe Burrow as well, and who knows? I'm not really high on the Bengals as of yet. So, but you got other guys in the other teams in the conference who may make a push, but we'll see. The Ravens are still up there. They're one of the best teams in the league, and that's not going to change.
And they're the second youngest team in the league.
Exactly.
The Texans are the youngest. So that was another thing we didn't even talk about. How young the Texans are, and they came in and just went on an absolute tear towards the end of the season.
Yeah. So
they're going to be something to deal with as well. Then Anthony Richardson coming back for the Colts. So there is a lot of what ifs out there next season that don't give it a guarantee that we're going to have this shot again at the championship.
That's why you talk about the window, Brad.
Right.
And like Zay Flowers afterwards, he said like everybody who watched this game believed that the Ravens were the better team.
Right.
Yeah.
And Chiefs fans might take that the wrong way and be like, no, we had the better team. It's plain and simple for the Chiefs right now. This is going to be, if they win the Super Bowl, getting there, this is probably the worst team roster wise they've had in their Super Bowl runs.
Yes.
And that's not a knock on them. That's just praising what they've had over the years and how talented they've been. But I think Chiefs fans and Chiefs players might not tell you that, but like looking at their roster, it's like, wow, like they're here. Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce is still Travis Kelce. But it's like, look at the roster top to bottom, and you're like, this is the Chiefs team that's representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. But it's like
one other thing, Rock.
Yeah.
Even though we are going to be losing some players more than likely on the defensive side of the ball, some really bright spots towards the end of the season, especially in that Steelers game. Trenton Simpson looked like a stud. That I don't want to say that he's a replacement for Patrick Queen, but if Patrick Queen doesn't happen to be here next year, I think we're still going to be in pretty good hands.
Yeah, man. That dude, in his motor too, and talking to him before the season even began, he carries himself the right way.
Right.
He was like, draft wise, he's like Trenton Simpson's going to go down as one of the all-time greats. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
That's his hope. But like to the point I was saying real quick, just Zay Flowers saying it was like, it's fun winning. When you get to the playoffs, you want to win, but sometimes the best team doesn't always win. And that was the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
And that's how I think Ravens fans feel right now, because if the Chiefs were the better team, give credit where credit's due. 100%. It's like, okay, they beat us. They came in here, they whooped our tails, and it is what it is. But it's like the talent of this roster on both sides of the ball, who you have, they were clicking at the right time. It was like, there were some baby steps at the beginning of the season with the new system offensively, but to now what they had grown into, it's just going to, leave a sour taste in your mouth, like for a long time.
Yeah. I think something with Zay Flowers and I think it was Torrey Smith tweeted this earlier today. Something that won't get looked at that really I think shows just what a top-notch organization the Ravens are just in every moment is Eric DeCosta standing behind Zay Flowers for his interview. And Torrey pointed out it's the little things like that where to the average person, I didn't even notice until Torrey pointed out. Yeah. That might not mean something. Like, what do you mean the GM standing behind the player? This was a rookie player in his, what is he, 22, I believe, 21, 22? In his biggest game of his career already. And he did have that moment where he fumbled in the end zone. And for the general manager to give that symbolism of, hey, we have your back. This is not you versus the world. This is us. We believe in you. I think it just sets up Zay for, I think already he was on track to be a top wide receiver. But I think this moment is like, I've seen people joking the villain arc begins, but it really is one of those things where that's going to be something where you're like the switch flips and Zay can be a top 5 receiver in this league.
What killed me was Zay Flowers is a guy that is all smiles all the time.
Yeah.
And then seeing that moment and how gutted he was afterwards. I mean, he was just like going over to the bench. You could see the frustration. He knows. And like the penalty before, he's going to beat himself up over that too. But this is a guy that his teammates will not let him be defined by one play in his career. He will not be defined by one play in his career. He was the team's leading receiver yesterday. He had 115 yards. He had the only touchdown for the Ravens offensively. He almost had another one. And I know almost only counts in horseshoes. That's what we want to say. But I mean, to get them there, to put them in that position, it's this loss should not fall on the shoulders of Zay Flowers. Now, is he one of the players to blame in this loss? Of course, you're gonna say like, okay, Zay Flowers, Lamar could have done more. Everyone could have done more, though. This is a team sport. It's not one player. So I know Zay will bounce back. Like I think everyone in this city knows Zay Flowers will bounce back, and his teammates will definitely have his back going forward.
Well, and this is finally what I think Ravens fans, you can tell when you got a guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying Hollywood Brown was not a good receiver for the Ravens. He was. There is a difference when you watch Zay Flowers play.
Yeah.
The attitude, his ability, the toughness. And what I loved,
playmaking ability.
Yeah, the playmaking ability. What I loved in the situation, yes, the taunting, unfortunately, and talk about karma right there. The guy that knocked out the ball at the goal line was Snead, who he taunted for the penalty. And taunting rules, by the way, that's a whole different subject. But what I loved is this is the biggest game of your career. You are a rookie going against one of the best cornerbacks overall. And granted, he was wide open on that one play, but when the lights were the brightest, Zay Flowers answered the bell.
Yeah.
And he's only going to get better and more accustomed. And you can tell Lamar Jackson trusts him. And I'm with you guys. I think that Zay Flowers is going to go down as being a true Raven great. It was a frustrating moment for the team, but he's not the only person that was the reason for the game. The Ravens aren't in the game without Zay Flowers.
Nope.
So you can say it whatever you want. At the end of the day, the Baltimore Ravens as a team collectively did not do enough to win this game. Sam, I know we kept you for a while, and I apologize because you're always a great sport. A couple of things you want to touch on because we're talking about your off-season schedule and everything you got going on. Anything you want to talk about before we let you get out of here?
Yeah. So the season's coming to an end. I'll have another show to recap, the failure of the game, if you will. But then afterwards, we'll have a lot of guests coming in, some former Ravens players, some current Ravens players, and maybe some journalists. Maybe get you guys on the show.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
maybe not Zach.
Yeah, probably not.
Come on. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think one thing to touch on before I get out of here is that I have a huge feeling that Rashad Bateman's going to have a big year next year, and it has a lot to do with Odell Beckham's possible exit from the team, and so that'll be one thing I'll touch on the show next week. But yeah, I think the Ravens are in good hands. I think they're going to be up there. It's just that they'll never, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't look like they're going to have an opportunity like this again, where they're so dominant and the other team is so inferior.
Yeah.
Well, and so for everyone to know, I agree with you, by the way. I just want to make sure that people know where to find where you are. I know you're on Instagram, you are on X, Twitter, whatever anyone wants to call it. and then your schedule is going to be moving forward.
Oh yeah. So I'll be once a week up until the end of the month, and then afterwards we'll be on the monthly basis until the beginning of the preseason.
All right, perfect. And that's Ravens Talk Podcast. And if you want a good laugh too, and maybe if you want to cry at the same time, Sam's your guy for the memes.
Yeah.
But Sam, we appreciate you, everyone. Sam and Joe.
Hey,
Appreciate you guys.
thank you, Sam.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Sam, you are the man.
Yep.
We're going to have Sam back in here, whether he likes it or not, moving forward when he's back on the East Coast. Sam, appreciate you. If you need anything, you let me know. You can shoot me a message. All right. I'll bother you later. Make sure you got out okay. All right. So, everyone, that was Sam and Jokey with Ravens Talk Podcast. He
will do that, by the way.
What?
You will do that. You're really good at making sure people are safe.
I try to work on people helping people.
Yeah, and you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
I'll give you that.
When do you ever make sure that I'm safe? You told me you were going to
He
throw me into
has
the inner
not
harbor.
made sure
No,
I was safe.
He told me he was going to
Not
throw me into the
once.
harbor for
Because
not,
you
not
deserved
making
it.
the show.
Because you deserve
No,
it.
no,
I don't
no,
deserve
no.
it.
No, time out. This was not it. Your words were, you would be here by a certain time. And if I'm not, you can do this. So I'm using your words against you. Now, Zach, on the other hand.
And wait, Ryan, did he by chance show up before the time he said he would be here by latest?
That is incorrect.
No.
Zach, why don't you shut your mouth?
All right, well, guys, if you're just
push-ups over there.
all right, if you guys are just
right.
tuning in here, it's we've been talking Ravens and Chiefs, the recap of what's happened. A lot of emotions. If you're new to the channel, it's the Ryan Ripken Show. We do this twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, and we will have special shows. Now we're going to have a lot more going on for this upcoming year, right? We talk about a lot of baseball, and for those that are wondering, we are Baltimore based, so the Orioles season's coming around the corner. But a lot of other baseball talk we are going to be able to talk about quite a bit. But we're going to continue to talk football, what's spicy, and there's so much left to be had so far this year. And actually, while we're figuring out some things here, I think Kevin's in the background here. I'm going to get Kevin back on the screen. Kevin, there he is.
Welcome back.
I didn't get to clap for Sam, so I'm clapping
absolutely
for Sam.
ridiculous with this show. We tag every time Kevin's coming in. You and I said something about that, Zach. We tag Kevin every time he's coming in. Like, he doesn't come on every single week.
Yeah, I know, but we do the right thing because we feel we like Kevin.
Where's my tag?
Thank you.
Where's Zach's
Thank you.
tag?
Yeah, no, we're not.
Where's
tagging
Brad's
it.
tag?
Okay, well, let's.
I'm just kidding. I love you, Kevin.
All right, good kids. But
Hey,
but Kevin, we're going to talk more about this as we go. And one of the narratives is looking at this as, what has been more. If you watch the Lions and 49ers game later, it was a very frustrating moment for Lions fans. Actually, maybe depressing, because it really felt like after the first half, the Lions were going to the Super Bowl. But I think, Kevin, you posed the question here, like, what is better, to be the upcoming team, to you're right there on the cusp, but you're not supposed to be the favorite, or lose the way the Ravens do? Do you have any specific thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of pose it the way I'm thinking about it is, how would you rather lose? Would you rather be the Ravens, this dominant team who's steamrolling through everybody, and then you lose in this fashion when you thought you had the team and it was just kind of a slog of a game? Or would you rather be Detroit, this up-and-coming team, really good, feel-good story, who's on the doorstep, and you have a situation where you're literally there. You're up at halftime big, and then you just come crashing back down to earth. I mean, both teams can get back, but it's different situations. And for me, I think that if you're Baltimore, you still feel good about the future, but everybody was talking about earlier, it's so hard to win, and no two teams are the same. We'll talk a little bit more about free agents and the offseason that'll obviously be coming up in the coming weeks, coming months. But the point that Sam made before he left, Rashad Bateman, they're going to have decisions on both him and Odafe Owe with fifth-year options. And what happened last offseason, the Ravens had a decision to make on Patrick Queen and his fifth-year option, and they declined it. And then he went out and balled out, had an all-pro year, and he's going to get, I don't know what the contract's going to look like, but it's going to be a lot more. It's a lot more financial security. So in terms of which one I would rather be, how would I rather lose? I mean, it's hard to lose. It's hard to pick, but maybe it's biased, but it just was so deflating to know that the Ravens had that team, to know that they were, it felt so flaw-proof. And then credit to the Chiefs, they did their job and they won the game, but Baltimore made a lot of self-inflicted mistakes, and is we have gone back to this entire show. It all starts with the game plan. And I'm not one to blame everything on one thing or one person. I think that's counterproductive because not one thing or one person loses or wins a game. But some things have more impact than others. And if you're the Lions, a couple of crazy plays don't go your way in that second half. The Niners feed off of momentum and they come back and win that game. The Ravens never really found momentum in this game. And I think that's part of why they lost. So I would rather have been the Lions as opposed to the Ravens in terms of the way that they lost. But look, to have that lead and lose it the way they did doesn't feel good at all.
No, I mean, I think in general, guys, it's losing sucks, and getting to this part of it, getting this close and feeling like you're right where you need to be. It's a hard pill to swallow, but for Detroit, this is a place they haven't been in a very long time, decades, really, right? The excitement around the organization, it has been something that Detroit fans have been waiting for. That's why the ticket was so expensive in Detroit. Now, granted, I know the AFC Championship game, super expensive, guys, but for the Ravens, this was the second time in the last 5 years that the Baltimore Ravens have had the number one seed. And the second time then they have been bounced before reaching the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of thoughts there that make this very challenging. And again, the bias is because of the expectation. I think the Lions, now they have more expectations. The Ravens have already had this expectation. It's already been here, Zach, that no matter what, the Ravens have built the Super Bowl or bust. Detroit, it was, we're great to be here. We believe we're good enough. But a lot of Lions fans are going to walk away going, what a hell of a season. And I can't wait for what this organization is going to do moving forward.
It almost gives me the same vibes as how Orioles fans were after this year. It was very similar in the fact that, yeah, in the moment you're like, wow, that sucked. That was a disappointment. But then you kind of still had that feeling of, okay, we were a young team that wasn't necessarily supposed to be here. We weren't supposed to make it this deep to start with. So I agree with Kevin. I think it's harder, especially with expectations that the Ravens lost, how they lost, knowing they were the better team. And it just, now in Detroit, it'll be different. They can't go and lose in the NFC Championship again next year. Then it's going to be a whole different set of expectations, as you talked about. But right now, even though it was a tough loss, it's hard not to be happy if you're a Detroit fan. You got to turn your mic off.
Mic's off. That's my fault.
Not winning the Super Bowl this year is a failure for the Ravens, and all next season, that's all it's going. Nobody's going to care about the regular season. As fans, you're going to wait till the postseason to see what they can do, and if they don't make the Super Bowl, then it's just another failed season.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think that and that's also with this talk about. We know it's a team sport, right? Like, it's not just on Lamar Jackson, but the thoughts are going to continue to be about that Lamar Jackson can't win the big game. And it's unfortunate that we have to keep having this conversation because I love Lamar. I love his talent. He is going to go down, in my opinion, as one of the best quarterbacks that has played and is going to transform, and he already has transformed the position. But failure, especially in the eyes, and it probably goes hand in hand because of the Ravens, of where people view them as an organization, plus you see the talent. Anything less than that's going to be considered not good enough, Kevin. And I know that you have a thought on that as well when it comes to failure.
And when you go back, and again, the point about 2019, I think is you hate talking about it, but now we're going to look back on this AFC Championship game. One of my favorite catches in the Lamar Jackson era that I've seen a receiver make was Hollywood Brown in that 2019 Tennessee game right before the end of the half, just stuck his hand out and put that ball in that. It was an incredible play. But we look back on that play is, oh, well, that's in that terrible Tennessee game. That's how that terrible, because we look back at 2019 as a historic regular season, but we don't talk about that season a lot anymore because of just how painful it was, how painful it ended. And I put a post out on Twitter about which was more painful. Was it 2019 or was it 2023? And the majority of people, just based off of the comments I saw, said it was this year, said it was 2023, because that 2019 team, as we talked about leading up to this game and even the divisional game, they were young. They hadn't been there before. And while some of the players on the Ravens this year hadn't been there, we're going to see like that Zay Flowers touchdown that Lamar had, the Isaiah Likely catch-esque like in Jacksonville, incredible play. But we're going to look back on that play as, oh, well, that happened in that AFC Championship game, and that season was so hard to look back on now. The Lamar Jackson having the ball batted up in the air, him catching it and running is one of the craziest plays I've literally ever seen. And we're going to look back on that play as, oh, well, that happened in that crazy, awful AFC Championship game, and it just takes the air out of those moments. So when we look back on this season, there was such high expectations. And the Ravens, I think they exceeded a lot of preseason expectations where it was like, all right, well, how good are they going to be this year? How's the roster going to flow? And the fact that they were so dominant, people's expectations shifted and morphed and changed over the season where people are saying, well, this team is so good. How can they lose another game? How can they be a team that has these flaws because they didn't have many? How could they lose? And they did. And that's why we're going to look back on this season. I don't know if, there are a lot of words you could use. Is disgust a word?
I don't think I'm with you. It's not disgust. I think what's going to happen now, Kevin, and I get what you're saying. But here's the narrative, guys. It's that in Baltimore, where you expect your team to be good every single year, right? For the Ravens, there's that expectation. And they're not just, and you can see with the fans, they're not just there. They're going to support the team no matter what, but they're not just there to get to the playoffs, right? This is to keep moving forward. If you're looking at other teams right now, teams that fall short, those are the teams that really aren't remembered if you're a organization that's going for championships.
Yep.
And that's what the Baltimore Ravens are doing. Just like people talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though granted, they had not had a losing season and however long they've been in with Mike Tomlin as the head coach, people make that comment, and it's a great accomplishment not having a losing season. But a lot of people are going to say that follow the Steelers and the fans of the Steelers would be like, we don't feel like we're close enough to get there. So it's like, oh, great, we're there, but we don't think that we can be a champion. But then you have teams like Cincinnati now where this is a really exciting time for them because they haven't had this and been being relevant. The Ravens narrative, no matter what, moving forward, it's simple. You win or you don't. And if you don't win the season, you can look back on some great moments, but it's still going to be disappointment. And to be honest, if I was a guy on the team, I'd feel the same way. You're not discrediting the season, but think of those. What has Lamar Jackson done or hasn't accomplished already in his career? He's done everything that any player could dream of, except Brad go to the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I actually brought up, and I think it was around the Texans playoff game, was that, if Lamar went on to win a Super Bowl this season along with 2 MVPs, he would then start to be talked about in the same conversation as Mahomes because he now had a Super Bowl under his belt. He now had 2 MVPs. All you'd have to do is win one more Super Bowl to be even with a Patrick Mahomes. And so this is obviously a really big letdown for them. But now that Patrick Mahomes has won this game and is going into another Super Bowl, the conversation is getting louder and louder about who's going to be the greatest of all time, and actually who could be the greatest of all time right now. There's a lot of overreactions on ESPN today between Pat McAfee and First Take and Get Up. They were all talking about this, and so it kind of got me to wondering, and I put a poll in here with our folks as well. If you're given 2 minutes left to go with the game on the line in the Super Bowl, who are you taking, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes? 70% of you guys so far are saying Tom Brady, and I'm with you. I think that conversation is just way too premature at this point. Now, I will say, I'll share the screen here with you guys just so you can see this graphic, because Bleacher Report put out something that I thought was interesting. Give me 1 second.
Whoop, whoop. While you're figuring it out, you want to. Yeah, go ahead. You ready?
Yeah, here it is. So I thought this was an interesting stat, but this is, so Bleacher Report put this out. This is like comparing Young Hoku's stats to Justin Tucker's this year. You guys remember that narrative that was being thrown around? There hasn't been enough time that has gone by. I mean, Tom Brady was playing an elite level. That dynasty lasted for nearly 2 decades. We're talking the first 6 years of Patrick Mahomes' career. And while it is absolutely amazing and incredible, and he's done some ridiculous things we haven't seen before, I'm still taking Tom Brady on that 2-minute drill no matter what. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that happen over the last 20 years of just giving Tom Brady 2 minutes and me telling whoever I was sitting with, it's too much time. Game's over. Pats are taking it. It's over.
And you know what, though, what both coaches have had, both Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, you've had excellent head coaches.
Yes.
Right. And so Bill Belichick, yes, he's more defensive minded, and you can say, well, he's not the same without Tom Brady. Right. But the reality is they are the standard now for the perfect match. They are going to go down as the best dynasty, but you know who's right there knocking on the door? It's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, because Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in NFL history.
Mhm.
And then he had the tough time winning those big games in Philadelphia. You draft the quarterback that you really wanted. It clicks. Now you're going to your 4th Super Bowl in 6 years, 6 AFC title games, and your losses during that time is to the Hall of Fame, future Hall of Famer, greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. And the other one was Joe Burrow, where they had a double-digit lead at home in Arrowhead.
Yeah.
And Patrick Mahomes, I'm with you, Brad. There's so much time that needs to be passed, because Tom Brady had like 3 Hall of Fame careers during his lifetime. But
Mahomes is going to have to get eight rings in order to pass Tom Brady. Like, that still seems like an unachievable number at this point. Andy Reid, I don't think it's going to last that long, so we'll see. But it just seems like just an unachievable number immediately after Tom Brady retires.
Yeah, and and look, I think what people are, and I'm reading some comments about Joe was talking about the amount of bashing on some coaches y'all loved 2 days ago, and that's a point too. Look, coaching is a huge part of the NFL, and Joe, I agree with you. I that's why I keep saying it was the Ravens collectively, the players, the scheme, except Mike McDonald. He was the one, at least of all of them, where his adjustments were felt. The Ravens shut him down in the second half, especially really the last 2.5 quarters. Coaching matters, and the Ravens still have one of the best coaching staff. It's not even close. It's undeniable. But we're talking about when you match some of the best coaches with also some of the greatest players. Look at the Chiefs right now. You have Andy Reid. You have Patrick Mahomes. They have a great chemistry. They know how to put each other in a good position. Andy trusts Mahomes. And then, also, by the way, you have the greatest tight end of all time now in Travis Kelce. And it just feels like there. And then you have the anchor of Chris Jones on defense. They have foundational pieces that make them successful, just like that Patriots team did during those dynasty years.
I got a question.
Yeah.
This is just totally random. Just came into my head. Travis Kelce wins another Super Bowl this year. Is he retiring?
Oh,
he might.
He's 34,
I don't
right?
know, man. How many years does he have left on his contract is the question. Because when I saw a clip today when he was speaking with it was Pardon My Take, and he basically said like 3 years left. Like, he was talking about the media world and like the New Heights podcast. So it had to be recently.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. It's like he could easily ride off into the sunset right now and go down as one of the best tight ends of all time. I mean, he's already considered one of the best of all time. Yeah, there you go. But
got a lot of reasons to retire, I'm just saying. Yeah, but he is 34, right? Like, that's pretty.
And with
getting up there in age.
With Jason, if Jason's done,
right,
that potentially could incentivize him more to just say,
they got the number one podcast.
I want to hang out with my brother, do the podcast, do more with it, let it evolve, and you can make a lot of money with that. So,
but also
we'll see.
You only have one career though, so once you're done, it's hard. It's not like Michael Jordan where you can retire and come back.
2 years. Sorry,
hey, that's not true. That is not true.
Thank you to people in the chat.
Gronk retired and came back and won another Super Bowl. So
they say Kelce's got one. So what does he have? He's got 2 years left or 1 year left?
He's got, I believe.
Because is this year still part of that 2 years left? Is it like, all right, he's this year and then he's got 1 year left next year?
He has 2 years.
He's got Kevin, our guy. Let's get Kevin back on here because he knows. Kevin,
according to my guy Joe.
Kevin,
with the
Bobby
jersey.
Let Kevin go.
Yeah, it's 2 years after this one. The sites have already updated to say that this year is this upcoming year is 2024. So like Spotrac and all those. So 2024 is next year, not this year. So 2024, he has a cap hit for Kansas City, 15 million, and 2025 cap hit of 19. It's
okay.
So 2026, his contract is over.
Let's go. Hold on. Travis Kelce could be hanging it up in 2025. Joe said Ryan Ripken coming out of retirement. So
damn right. Maybe I will. Maybe I will.
Maybe
but
you should.
Talk about a guy where, though.
Thank you, guys. By the way, the chat. Shout out to you guys.
Yeah, you're a good kid, Rock. But hey, maybe. But yeah, no, I'm not coming out of retirement. But the point being is, Zach didn't mean to change your or take your thunder there. But Michael Jordan, it's these. Michael Jordan was in his prime when he retired, and then was still in his prime when he came back. Right? It's these players. Travis Kelce. Well, yeah.
All right, easy.
Anyway.
I love conspiracies.
Of course you do.
I
Well,
love.
you know what? We can talk about that more.
You literally look like a conspiracy theorist with
Good.
like what you're
I
wearing
could.
right now. It's the mustache, it's the
hat.
mullet, and it's the Dahmer glasses that
Yeah.
really sell
If you
it,
had
so.
like a white panel van, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
All right. Well, hey, why don't we
Zach.
keep, if you're new to the channel here, this is the Ryan Ripken Show. We do this every Monday and Thursday. We were recapping the Ravens and Chiefs, and we're going to talk a little bit about some other things before we dive back into a little bit more Ravens content. Sorry.
Come on, Rip.
Unique New
Spit it
York.
up.
Do you really want to go there, Rock?
What I can
You should
speak
be on your
most
best
of the time.
behavior, man.
Yeah.
What?
Well, we don't know what you're doing over there on the corner. Kevin's giving a really good take on something, and you are standing up, trying to figure it out.
I'm a germ guy, so I didn't want to.
Oh my
I don't. Whenever I use these, I don't like to use the same ear. And it's
I don't blame you.
It's when anyone does it. It's when Nick Moore uses them. It's when Kevin uses them, and then Sam. Love all those guys, but I just like don't like the.
If there's chunks of earwax on it, I'm like, I don't want to touch that.
Well, I don't even know if there were. It was just like because I think
He does
I think we're all
it. No,
clean
he
people.
does this every time.
Well, yeah. So I don't care. But like,
I
if
just
there's like
change the
visible,
earbuds. I don't like other people's ear in my if you were, I'm not
My
wearing
ear
your
in your ear.
Yeah, I'm not like if I were to wear them, like I'm changing the earbuds. I'm sorry.
Okay, do you share?
Is that a weird thing to do?
Time out. Do you
Am I
share?
weird for that?
No, okay, but the last thing before we get back, let's get back onto the topics that are important here. But actually, the most important, this is the next question, is do you share a drink with someone then?
I mean, sometimes if it's like, if my girlfriend's like, hey, like have a drink of this, yeah. But like if it's like Zach and like,
oh no, absolutely,
he's just like a dirty dude. It's like I'm gonna turn the cup and be like, yeah, I'm gonna drink from this part, even though
that's
your
acceptable.
backwash is probably going into it.
Listen, we're asking all the important questions.
Yeah, we are.
Which reminded me, and I'm putting it in the poll right now. Are you a toilet paper baller or folder?
I crumble it up.
Yeah, he's a baller.
Yeah,
So are you a baller?
No,
I don't like this
Brad,
question.
Brad, here's another one.
I'm a folder.
Okay, you're a folder. So you like fold it perfectly. And then
and
so all right, do you when you put the toilet paper on the roll,
I don't care.
do you put it backward? You're
Oh, it's over.
You're a freak.
It's an over.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
What the
If
hell
I
are
can
we
dap
talking
you up right
about?
now, here, air
clue.
dap
Yeah,
right now. Yeah, boom.
Can we talk football?
Yeah, let's
No,
get back to
listen,
football.
listen, there's got to be some comedic relief in all the fucking doom and gloom.
Yeah.
So listen, we're just got to change it up a little bit.
You're the weirdo who doesn't care which way the toilet paper goes.
Don't care. There's no
no.
consistent. Oh my.
Yeah,
Why,
that's just like weird.
I'm cool
So-
with comedic
hold
relief.
on. So-
Why are we talking about
Stackhouse
toilet
says
paper?
bidet. That's
Oh.
an underrated.
Listen,
move.
see now the chat's getting in on it too. You can't be wrong about that.
Shekel says bidet. All right, bidet might be the move. We definitely like.
Are we
I don't
putting
know,
one
it
in the
might be a
studio?
purchase. Yeah, well, I might put one in my house. Like I'll always just get a bidet. Like, aren't they pretty cheap online too?
Yeah.
Someone told me
See,
they're
thank
like
you,
50
Brandon.
bucks.
Brandon's in on this conversation too. It's always
over. Thanth you, Brandon. Shout out to Brandon. Yeah.
85% so far are folders. That is actually pretty crazy.
I'm glad.
Dude, I crumble it up. and
Listen,
just, like,
our audience is the absolute fucking best. Thank you for
Shekel with the dry
Look,
white. He said yuck.
this is why you come to the show. Yes, you get your sports, but then you also get
I will
information.
say that. I will say this. Like,
Are we still
wipes-
talking
no,
about
yeah,
this?
Dude wipes. Shout out dude
Yeah,
wipes. Maybe
wipe-
they'll eventually
yes,
like
yeah.
sponsor the show. Like who
That'd be
knows, but,
great.
like,
That'd be great.
It's like dude wipes are that's the way to go.
All right, well, we're gonna come back to this because the poll's still alive.
All
But
right, we'll get the polls up. Please vote then. And while we're doing this, let's get back to a little bit
Sorry,
of football
guys.
here. Holy
Got
shirts
really off
and
topic. Yeah,
pants.
this is what the show turns into.
Well, this is
sometimes.
what we get. Kevin, I know, is just shaking his head behind there, being like,
oh,
"What the
Kevin,
hell?"
have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Go feed your fish, Kevin.
Wow.
Do you want me to do a live fish feeding on stream?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
You want me to-
Oh, this is electric.
Unbelievable.
Let's go.
I have to keep my earphones in. So
What kind of fish you have? Like a little beta?
Yeah, they're guppies.
Oh, a guppy.
Guppies.
Yeah,
Is it like a certain?
Oh my God, there's a light.
Got a light too?
See?
Wow.
Well, see, I don't use the light because the light reflects off of my lights, so I can't use.
Oh,
I can't use the light.
Well, we can't have
See
that.
there?
Kevin.
See here? They're eating.
you
it.
fed 'em?
See 'em? You see?
Yeah, Kevin, good job, Kevin.
Nicely done, sir.
Kevin, good,
All right.
good kid.
Let's get back into
What
it.
is
All
this
right,
show?
Oh, now
That's
you
my
want-
That's
fault.
where you
It's
drew
my-
the line?
It's my fault. No. I'm sorry. It's my ADD kicking
oh,
in. I apologize.
we know. But
I'm just saying.
hey, but and also before we dive back in, it's the Ryan Ripken Show. It's our 50th episode, And Ronald, thank you very much. It is the milestone. Hey, guys, congratulations. And really, we're doing all this because of the support.
Mom congratulated us too. Thanks, Mom.
Well, yeah, she did. Shout out Kelly. She is the GOAT. We really appreciate it.
Dude wipes.
Yeah. Also, it's a good time then as we segue into talk about more football here. Our good old friends at Adams Jeep of Maryland here, which is behind here. I know they'll love to talk about our toilet paper situation, but
these polls are epic.
Raven Ron, look up dude wipes. I'm telling you, they're life changing. And you don't want to flush them because it says flushable. I don't believe it either. You don't want to damage your plumbing.
What do you put it?
What?
Where do you put it?
I roll it up in toilet paper, put it in the trash can, and then take my trash out that night.
Your shitty wipes in the trash?
No, it's not like that bad.
Okay, all right. And Karen, what the hell are we doing?
Oh my God.
All right. Let's move on with our friends Adams Jeep of Maryland. They are great if you got to get your car serviced. You're looking for a Jeep. In an instant.
Didn't Little Vito do that in The Sopranos with carousel?
Okay, can we
back on top.
Hey, this conversation is going on 5 minutes.
Rocco,
Sopranos. I'm sorry.
Rocco, heel. Rocco,
Rocco's done.
Sit,
put it down.
Goodness gracious.
It's over.
Can we mute his mic?
Yeah.
There's like a line. Rocker just loves the cross.
All right. All right. Well, how about this? Let's go back to what we're talking about here. Adams Jeep of Maryland, by the way. Rocco.
What, dude?
Goodness gracious.
What?
No, relax.
What did I do?
I'm trying to talk, and you're a hyena laughing into the mic.
I'm good. I'm done.
Okay.
Oh
We're
God.
Adams Jeep of Maryland. We love you. If you need to get your car serviced, I texted them. They said, sure, bring it on up. They're so helpful. We're going to have to test out some more Jeeps, and they're going to be a part of a lot of things that we have going on for this spring. And if you're new to the show, hit that like and subscribe button. And if you don't want to, I understand after the last conversation.
So sorry.
But let's get back into football here. And we talked a little bit about how the coaching methods so far and with the Baltimore Ravens, people felt uncomfortable or frustrated with where the Ravens offense. Oh, you guys are riding the Jeep. Sorry.
I think we're like,
Yep. We are not milking cows anymore.
Thank goodness.
like an under.
No. Okay.
I'm riding
All
dirty.
right,
Anyway,
Zach. That's no. That's just
Do
not
people-
bad. Just looks bad.
All right,
Looks
I'm
bad.
going to play the video here because we're talking
Let's
about
go.
coaching styles. And Dan Campbell was under a
Gotcha.
lot of fire here because of the fact that he was very aggressive. He had a chance to go up 3 scores in that NFC Championship game. He went for it again when they could have tied the game. But that has been the identity of the team. And when he talked about it after the game, Dan Campbell did not walk back any of his thoughts. And I want you to hear his message because I think it is very important to really embody what the Detroit Lions have been this season.
Then we got no shot of getting back here. I don't live it, unfortunately. You got to get your heart ripped out, which we did. And it's a lesson learned. And look, I told those guys, this may have been our only shot. Do I think that? No. Do I believe that? No. However, I know how hard it is to get here. I'm well aware. And it's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year. That's the reality. And if we don't have the same hunger and the same work, which is a whole nother thing, once we get the offseason, then we got no shot of getting back here. I don't care how much better we get or what we add or what we draft. It's irrelevant. It's going to be tough. Everybody in our division is going to be loaded back up, and, you're not hiding from anybody anymore. Everybody's going to want a piece of you, and which is fine, which is fine. But so it's hard. You want to make the most of every opportunity, and we had an opportunity, and we just couldn't close it out. It stings.
So why I wanted to play that, because, and people talked about this, he lived and died by that same exact sword. That is what Dan Campbell has been, but that has been Dan Campbell the moment he walked into Detroit to be the head coach. They said it's not just about going for it on 4th down. It was a culture that they wanted to set. It was, we are going to continue to push forward. We are going to play our game. If there's one thing you can't question the Detroit Lions on, was playing their game. Yes, could they have possibly taken the points there, because it does change the flow of the game, going up 3 scores instead of being up 2. But you can't discredit what the Lions have done. And actually, a fun fact for the Lions, on 4th and 3s or fewer, guys, the Detroit Lions, after they failed in the NFC Championship game, 20 of 25. 20 of 25 times they succeeded and converted to extend the drive or score a touchdown or any type of point. So, guys, let's go around here, Zach, real quickly, though, because people, and if you're a Ravens fan and you're tuning in here, I know that you are frustrated with how certain things went in Baltimore, game plan, play calling. How do you feel, Zach, about Dan Campbell's choices in this game?
I mean, we've talked about it on the show a few times. This is who Dan Campbell is. This is everything he's about in the Dallas game, even though it definitely was an interesting decision, from the 7-yard line. He said after the game, he was like, I told my guys, no matter what, we are going for it. And that's who he is. They go for it. They take risks, and it's living and dying by what you do and by what you've done all season, what got you there. We can sit there and complain about the Ravens didn't run the ball, and they got away from what they do. They got away from what got them there. And Dan Campbell won't do that. Dan Campbell is going to be the same coach, whether it's week 1 or the NFC Championship. He wants to go for it. He wants to be the aggressor. He wants you to have to react to them. And it does suck. I mean, the outcome is what people are going to look at and what people are going to fixate on and say, no, if you take the field goals, if you take the points, it's a different outcome. And that might be true, but that's not who he is. And that's not who I don't think that's who Dan Campbell ever will be. He's an aggressive coach, and that's what it's going to do.
It's what lost them the Cowboys game in the regular season, right? They're just continuing to go for it.
Yeah.
Go for 2 or whatever it was to win the game rather than tie it. I love it, honestly. And to your point too, like, I also agree, like, it is exactly who the Detroit Lions are, and it's what Dan Campbell has been since he stepped foot in that organization. So I don't think that there's anything to really be upset about with Dan Campbell on the 4th down play calls.
Yeah,
really, it was just them letting go of the game. I don't know what adjustments they need to make as far as that's concerned, but the play calling itself, I got no problem with. And if I was a Lions fan, I wouldn't have any problem with it either. It was just how they lost the game rather than the play calling itself.
No.
Yeah. Well, maybe in this case, though, and Rock, I'll ask you this, and Kevin, I'm going to circle you back here on the next question. But Rock, I thought the biggest change of the game was not necessarily that they kept going for it, which I still would have gone. I like the idea of going up 3 scores, but I don't blame, because Dan Campbell stayed true to who he was. But the fumble, the turnover, we talked about in the Ravens-Chiefs game, the Ravens couldn't get back in it because, yes, they couldn't score on offense, but the Chiefs didn't make a mistake on offense. They didn't turn it over. That turnover by the Lions really opened up the door to give the 49ers momentum in that game.
No, absolutely it did. And the 49ers did a great job capitalizing. I want to first say this. Dan Campbell coaches football games like I play Madden. It's just like go for it all the time. It's like I'm never punting. I'm never kicking the field goal. That's just how I play Madden, but I'm also not the coach of an NFL team, and nor will I ever be. But
don't sell yourself short.
Well, yeah, you know what? Maybe one day. Maybe one day dreams can happen.
Have some confidence.
But I don't think we're talking about this if the 49ers didn't capitalize both times that they went for it. Both times they went for it. Both times they didn't convert. Those turnover on downs, the 49ers went down and scored touchdowns. And then obviously the fumble did hurt as well because they capitalized on that as well. But the 49ers in the second half, they came out with their hair on fire, and they took control of this game. And once they took control, they got control late. They never looked back. And it's tough to be down to a team like that, or even play ahead against a team like that, because you're trying to do all the right things possible to prevent something like this from happening, because the weapons they have on both sides of the ball. You're not likely going to shut them out for 2 halves of football, and the Lions didn't, but they did shoot themselves in the foot a few times in doing so. And the 49ers, they jumped all over it. It's like, I think the second time they went for it on, and they turned it over on downs, I believe it was like the first play or one of the first plays, Christian McCaffrey broke off that really long run that set them up in great position, and they ended up scoring a touchdown. So you can't do that against teams like I don't disagree with Dan Campbell going for it, because that's their bread and butter. That's what's gotten them to this point. And I know we're going to look at the Cowboys game and be like, okay, they could have done something differently there. They could have kicked the field or kicked the extra point and went for overtime, but they didn't. They're an aggressive team.
Yeah.
And because they're an aggressive team, they were in the position that they were in this season. And on top of that, they have talent on the roster. I do like what he said to his team afterwards. Like, people are knocking him for saying like, there's a chance we're not back. It's like, he's being real.
Yeah.
He's being real. Like we talk about
It's
it.
so
Like,
hard to win.
Yeah, it is so hard to win. It's like, that could have been our only chance. Does he think that that is their only chance? Absolutely not. I feel like Dan Campbell and this roster believes that they can get back to the NFC Championship game and one day win a Super Bowl. But until that happens, it remains to be seen.
I'll tell you what, he wasn't kidding either. That NFC North division is going to be absolutely dominating between what the Packers showed us towards the end of the season. I mean, the Vikings obviously are the big question mark between the Bears, Packers, and Lions. That's going to be a tough division next year, I think.
It went from one of the weaker divisions to now sneaky going to be a strong one with upside moving forward.
Yeah.
And to close the part on the Dan Campbell, because I want to switch to the other part of this, Kevin, where I'll bring you in. Dan Campbell, what I love about being real, and you've mentioned this, we get so accustomed because you see some of the greats do it. And when we brought up the Chiefs, what they're doing is so impressive because look how hard it is for other teams to get it right and to move forward and to have success and to win. And look across to any of the best sports teams across any of whatever sport you enjoy watching. The teams that win a lot, it's impressive. It's not easy. And if you want to talk about the ones like specifically personally in Baltimore for me growing up with in the baseball world, winning is so damn hard. You play all those games and then the team gets hot in the postseason. The Orioles were the number one seed in the AL. And then what happens? Texas, who was a very good team, got healthier, got hot, and won 11 straight road games. Like, things happen that you can't underestimate. But Dan Campbell, what I love is he's real, he's authentic, and he keeps it straight, and he shoots straight with his players. Now let's go to the other side, because a guy that deserves a little bit more credit, and I know it's Zach's like fourth or fifth best favorite player, Brock Purdy right there. How about Brock Purdy? So far in his career, in the first two seasons, his only loss is that game he got knocked out in Philadelphia. I believe it was in the first quarter. And Brock Purdy in the second half.
Yeah. Well, like what, he was knocked out, then so was Johnson. So then he physically not being able to hold his arm up, had to go back out there and play.
Purdy hurt the elbow. I think wasn't Josh Johnson like in the concussion protocol?
Yeah,
but Purdy got smoked by Hassan, or I don't know if he got he hit him on the elbow when he was throwing and messed something up. Yeah,
he got
basically just running the ball the whole game.
Well, he physically couldn't throw. Yeah, so then Kevin, that brings you back in because a lot of the conversation about Brock Purdy and can't winning a big game and people now coincidentally Brock Purdy. It felt like once the Ravens beat and Lamar Jackson, they won that game. Everyone, the Brock Purdy haters, Zach Bollinger in particular here, was saying then that no longer was Brock Purdy deserving of being the MVP. But guess what? Brock Purdy yesterday made some great plays, and what he needed them to do, and yes, that 49ers defense made some stops. That offense put up 27 points in the second half, and now Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers are going to be playing for a chance at a Super Bowl. And again, Brock Purdy then would join an elite group in their second season to win a Super Bowl. The last one doing so, I believe, was Russell Wilson. And before that was Ben Roethlisberger with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and I think that you got to give him credit here. He also was making plays. He was showing those wheels a little bit. He was ripping off a couple of long runs. I mean, he was making plays with his arm and with his legs, and he was one of the main architects in that comeback. You have to give him credit. And you can even go back to the divisional round last week where it was a dogfight with the Packers, and you were kind of wondering, oh, well, is Green Bay really going to pull this one out? Brock didn't really play well for the first 3+ quarters, and then he has that one legacy drive at the end of that game to kind of secure things. And I know weather was a bit of a factor in that game, et cetera, but sometimes playoffs it's a different beast when you talk about the playoffs versus the regular season. Regular season's a long grind. You're trying to figure things out. And Brock played well in the regular season. I'm not trying to say it's just a playoff thing, but in the playoffs, one loss and you're done, right? It's the thing in the playoffs. So it doesn't matter how you win the games. It doesn't matter if you are terrible for 3 quarters and then you have one good drive. Brock won the game. I mean, I know McCaffrey had touchdowns in that game, but Brock had that one great drive at the end to seal it. And then in this game against Detroit, when everything was looking down, looks like Detroit, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's waving goodbye to the fans in the second quarter. Everything is against San Francisco. Momentum in that stadium was just out. There was nothing. There was no energy. They come out in that second half and Brock leads them. You have to give him all the credit in the world. And now, I mean, it's kind of crazy to say, but the whole world seems to be behind Brock Purdy when it comes to dethroning Mahomes and Kelce and Taylor Swift. The whole world wants Brock Purdy to win this game. And I think it'd be a really cool story, personally, to see Mr. Irrelevant go. We've mentioned the injury. The storyline for Brock and them winning it would be really cool to me.
Yeah, and also the context of the injury, by the way, with Brock, it's a baseball type injury for pitchers. You hurt your UCL, You're trying to not UCLA, Zach. Good kid though. But to the point of it being, that's a really frustrating and tough injury, especially when your job as a quarterback, just like your job as a pitcher, is to throw the ball and to be effective and to be able to bounce back and then have the confidence to do it. And plus knowing that in a instant, and I'm not saying the Niners were committed to Brock Purdy, right? But what if Brock came out of the season and wasn't playing well? And it's not like they have a lot invested in him. What do you got?
What if Brock Purdy threw that interception instead of Brandon Ayuk catching it like a fucking maniac?
That was one of the wildest plays I've ever seen.
A ladybug landed on his foot pregame is what he was telling Aaron Andrews afterwards. He's like, that was like obviously the sign of good luck. So that's kind of crazy. He had all. I mean, that catch was.
This catch
wild.
is unreal.
And sometimes you need luck on your side, and man, was it on his side right there.
We've seen so much of this in the playoffs too, like playoffs, a Super Bowl, like bounces off of defender's face and he catches the ball. This is like, I don't know, just feel like the Lamar play that we saw as well with him catching his own pass. And by the way, it was actually pretty funny with Brandon Ayuk's reaction to SportsCenter's top 10 this morning. Did you guys see that? So this specific play was SportsCenter's top 2 play, and Lamar Jackson catching his own ball was number 1, and Brandon Ayuk had words about it.
Yeah, I would say his is probably more. I mean, like
it was. I think it's close.
I would give it to Ayuk just because it ended up being a touchdown. Like I think style points, like it was deep down the field. Like Lamar's was just crazy because the ball was in the air, and I was like, oh boy, that's not where he went. And then he was like, who just came down with that? And you're like, how the hell did Lamar Jackson just do that?
Yeah, I do think though there would have been a penalty if it wasn't caught on the Lions for Ayuk's. Not that, but for the impact of the game, because Lamar's catch, unfortunately, it led to nothing. If Lamar housed it and took it to the place, the bank one would have erupted. I think my eardrums would have exploded because that would have been the loudest in the history of M&T Bank Stadium, but it didn't happen. Ayuk makes the play, but the beauty with Brock Purdy, though, he kept making plays, whether it was through the air or with his legs, and they found a way. The Niners defense is more vulnerable than people thought they would. And look, the Lions played a good game. They were well deserving to be in that NFC Championship game, but it really was the Lions, maybe their aggressiveness. The Niners made the right plays on defense, but Brock Purdy in the offense, with a little bit of luck, was able to close it out, and they're the team that's going to go to the Super Bowl, and they got a tough task facing the Kansas City Chiefs. We are it's the Ryan Ripken Show, Mondays and Thursdays. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. We would appreciate that. Let's circle back here, guys, before we get out of here. And this is about the Ravens because, let's just face it, this is a hot topic. We cover Baltimore specifically. Now, the Niners and Chiefs are moving on, but what happens now with the Lions? We know what's going to happen with the Lions. They're young. They have a good formula of stability. The Ravens, they got a lot of question marks here as far as, and maybe Kevin, we'll start you off here, and I'm going to ask a question with the panel, is that the Ravens are still possibly, it's not out of the realm here that they're going to lose one of their coordinators or one of their coaches to a head coaching job. And although Ben Johnson is not the Commanders coach, it seems like it's a very good possibility that one of those spots is going to go to him that's left over.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation, and I think, Ben Johnson essentially deferring a head coaching opportunity from last year to this year. There was interest in him last year, and he decided to go back to Detroit, try to finish what he started. It seems, if I had to predict, and there are a lot of rumblings that people have put out on social media, or that have things about him going to the Commanders and that being a really, really strong possibility. With both the Commanders and the Seahawks, though, they're kind of cross-interviewing. I think almost every candidate that the Commanders are interviewing at this point, the Seahawks are also interviewing, and obviously vice versa there, whether it's Anthony Weaver, Mike McDonald, Dan Quinn. So we'll see, but it seems pretty likely that Ben Johnson will go to one of the Commanders or the Seahawks, and then whether Mike McDonald fills the other opening or if it's Dan Quinn, does Bill Belichick kind of creep back up here and take one of those jobs, Vrabel potentially? But it looks like Ben Johnson, if I had to guess based off of stuff that's been put out there, I would probably say that he goes to the Commanders. And obviously, if we're relating it back to the Ravens, it's one more destination crossed off of the list. But it seems like Seattle really likes Mike McDonald. They've been waiting for him all this time. They're finally going to interview him. I think that interview was tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, with Seattle.
Yes.
So we're going to see. We know Mike McDonald is more than deserving of a head coaching opportunity, even though all the posts on social media saying that he stole my car and all this other crazy stuff.
Which he did.
A lot
was
of
all
stuff
about
done.
Well,
I made up a lot of shit.
Oh,
McDonald here.
Yes, you did. But so it looks like obviously Todd Monken's name has been kind of taken out of the consideration. The other name for Ravens coaches was Anthony Weaver, who has a great respect in the locker room. And Zach, I know you were high on him as far as, and that's still in play, but it does look like for the most part, though, there's going to be some continuity if the Ravens choose to have it. But how about players then of what ifs now? The big name, we know that the Ravens can't keep all their guys. And I'll start this off here with Rock, and then I'll have a follow-up for you, Zach. But you got to spend time with Patrick Queen, Rock. And in this case right here, Patrick Queen was asked about, well, we know he left it all out in the field, but what could it mean for his future for Baltimore? So we want you guys to listen to it for just a few seconds.
It definitely would be nice to come back, but at the same time, I just got to do what's best for me, do what's best for my family, and then they got to do what's best for them on the other side too as well. So, wherever that leads to, is up to God.
Yeah, he gone.
And he might be, but Rock, you talked about it. You would hate to see him go because as a person first, he's loved in Baltimore. He's loved in that locker room, and he's had a tremendous season.
Yeah, this was a guy when the Ravens drafted him in the first round. I mean, it came with unbelievable expectations. And many people here at first were like, well, when's this going to happen? When is Patrick Queen going to hit his stride? And Patrick Queen the last 2 seasons not only has been a fantastic player, the guy's in a class, like an A-class person. Like he is an awesome person. He embodies everything that it means to be a Baltimore Raven. And if he is playing elsewhere next season, it is going to suck because he is such a great dude, such a great player. And, I can't sing his praises enough because he's great with media, always does interviews, win, lose, doesn't matter. Like he will always take the time to talk with you or talk with other people. And that's the type of person and football player that you want to root for. It's not just the on the field product that he puts out. It's the type of human being that he is. And, he's great with his time in the locker room, great with his time on the field. And he has really produced the last 2 seasons, especially. And to be, I believe, a second team All-Pro this season and to be a Pro Bowler for the first time in his career, you saw what it meant to the guy. Yeah. You saw what it meant to him. He got emotional because he goes out there every single play, every single down, every single snap, and he wears his heart on his sleeve.
It always seems like we do this, though. Like, it always seems like the Ravens have such depth at linebacker that when it comes time to pay somebody a huge contract with CJ Mosley, with who plays for the Patriots? Why has it just left me? Judon, yeah. So when it comes to paying some of those guys, there's always somebody who is next man up that can play at a ridiculously high level. We saw that with PQ after he left, and then we saw with Judon after CJ Mosley left, and we might see it again with Simpson. I'm not quite sure. So, and who knows? Maybe there's some way where they can figure out how to keep PQ, but if not, he's going to do great no matter where he's at.
It would be great, Brad, to be able to keep him if he took a discount, but would you want the guy to take a discount when he can go get paid and make so much money? Yeah.
Here's what I'll say to that. Here's what I'll say to that. I don't understand sometimes, maybe just because I've never played professional anything. And so, Ryan, maybe you can give some insight to this as well. But if you know you're going to a shit team where there is no championship in sight whatsoever, you're just going to take a bunch of money just to take the money.
Yeah, you don't want to be miserable. But
is there? Well, I mean, look at the Jets.
You're right.
CJ Mosley has not been relevant. I mean, look, hasn't been right. Been on an absolute trash team since he left the Ravens, and now Judon's in the same boat. Like, that's the question that I always try to think about when do players. How much does actually being with a good organization matter versus just getting a big contract?
Yeah, I think
Mosley had a big year this season, but I get what you're saying. Like the relevancy factor being on a team that's not winning necessarily.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers was there and they were a playoff team. You'd hear much more about CJ Mosley this year, but I mean, he had a really good. It was this season, I believe that.
But he's been with the Jets. What, 6
last
years?
season, 2022. 2022, he was a second-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowl.
Yeah. So no, CJ Mosley is a fantastic player. He's had some more injuries playing for the Jets, but the amount of money that they spent to get CJ Mosley, and again, so Brad, to answer your question, this is the business of professional sports, by the way. So for people to understand it, when you see people take these gigantic contracts, you grow up to play the sport because you love it, right? That's why you do it. You're good enough to get into the pros. Then you have a chance to make it a career. And then it turns into being for fun to being a way of life and for business. And sometimes you got to make a business decision. It's a career. And a lot of people, just like in any job, you are trying to keep moving up the ladder. In this case, in professional sports, it is, how do I maximize my earnings? Because these players, if you put all this time into your skill set, and I'm not saying other players don't have other opportunities or endeavors that they can focus on, when you're a professional athlete, that shelf life is small and you don't know what you're going to have after it. You could have a successful business, you could move on, but there's a chance that you're not going to be able to make this type of money. So Brad, that's where it goes down to. And if you're a younger player, and like Patrick Queen's a young player,
24 years old, he'll be 25 when he's 24, but he'll turn 25 in August. So he'll be 25 this upcoming season, week 1. So it's he may, if he gets paid this year, signs a 3-4 year deal with someone, then you're talking about, all right, 29. How much longer is he going to play after 29? Maybe 3-4 more. It depends. You never know with injuries. Obviously, knock on wood, you don't want to see Patrick Queen get injured.
Yeah.
You never know. So it's for me with that, it's you want to, in any career, while you could be in a good position, you could have a chance to win a Super Bowl. And we look at that as why would you want to leave a team like this? It's, first of all, the Ravens declined Patrick Queen's 5th-year option. So
that's not what I'm saying.
No. I know. I'm just making a point here with that. But second of all, it's you want to make as much money as possible in your career. You want to have that generational wealth so you can set yourself up, set your kids up, and set your grandkids up for the foreseeable future. And I don't look at it as greed with a lot of these guys. I look at it as trying to be smart and trying to be, good business tactics.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that either. I think it was more with
what do you want to
say
do
with Ryan, for more of the love of the game, right? Obviously you still love the game, and I get the job part. But I think it's when you look at Tom Brady, for example, that would take pay cuts or restructures anytime he had to keep a player to continue to win. So I feel like there's 2 different types of players. Obviously there's the Tom Brady type, and then somebody who just wants to go after the biggest paycheck they can get, which I respect both. It's not saying that I'm not saying that I'm dogging anybody for that. It's just that mentality of if I had it my way, could I get what I like to get top dollar? Sure. But could I get second best and also go to an amazing organization? Probably would do that.
Yeah. It's if the Ravens offered him a solid deal for what he just did this season and he turned it down, it'll be all right, maybe we can have that conversation. But if he's getting I'm just making up a number here, $30 million to go and play for freaking make up a team for me right now, Zach.
Panthers.
The Panthers? Well, maybe not the Panthers.
You know what's a good example of what I'm trying to say? Odell Beckham Jr. went to the Browns for the money.
Well, no. He got traded. Oh,
no. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right.
He didn't have a choice. But so he went to the Rams when the things happened because of the opportunity. And it's where you're at your point of your career. And you got to look at positional value as well here.
This is right too, Rip.
Yeah.
Like Karen said about Brady had money coming in from other things, endorsement deals, stuff
Correct.
like that. So
true.
Correct. That is.
So all of it plays into it. But here we'll dive. The last thing I'll wrap up with this point that I was trying to make. Players, when you're younger, and especially when you get to this point, and this is it's not nastiness of the business. It's just the reality of the business. When you are no longer usable, you're done. they will get rid of you. And that's not trying to be harsh, but when you look at some of these players, when you guys watch some of these guys be top picks and you think that they're going to have these long careers, and in an instant, some injury happens and they're done.
Matt Leinart.
Well, so and those guys, he's got a second career as a broadcaster, but his shelf life as a NFL player was done.
Yeah.
Running backs, when you look at that, Le'Veon Bell got money, he got paid, and I don't blame him. He was not the same player after his contract.
I feel bad for Dobbins.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
So-
because then he's another one, right? Like he had the 1 year deal, and now we don't know what he's going to be.
Well, this is the final year of his contract or final year of his rookie deal, I believe, right? And
Yeah.
then, so then what do you do now? Now you're going to have an unproven contracts. Quarterbacks should have the most flexibility in my mind if you're a really great quarterback.
Yeah.
Because that's where so much money is. If you're going to be a successful team, it's rookie deal or you have a quarterback take a discount because that's where a lot of the money's going. And that's where it's going to have to be to try to keep these guys. Patrick Queen's very young, Rocco, but what's the shelf life for a NFL linebacker? How long does how long does Patrick Queen's body stay effective or stay so he can be an efficient player?
Yeah,
These are all
I agree.
questions
You're right.
that, so no, the point that I'm just trying to make here, Brad, to go with it.
Yeah.
Players really have to take a hard look. Am I willing to take you're getting 40 million guaranteed and say maybe, this team's going to offer me 30 million guaranteed and this one's offering me 40. Do I want to risk a $10 million gap if I get hurt and my career's over? And
It's a
that's
lot
what
of money.
people have to live with. And that is just the reality of the situation. It's with every sport that you deal with. And unfortunately, the Ravens, it's fortunate. They have so many damn good players.
Yeah.
And, Zach, we talked about this, and I want to answer one other part real quickly, though. But Patrick Queen, it feels like he talked up Mike McDonald. Would it be surprising if wherever he goes, Patrick Queen goes?
No, not at all. And I think it's one of those things where Patrick Queen has earned his right to leave Baltimore, meaning he played so well that he is going to get massive offers from people. And, it is one of those bittersweet things because you love rooting for a guy who did get his fifth-year option declined. He did have some drama going on in the offseason. They brought in Trenton Simpson, and everyone was like, is Queen going to be dealt before the season? And there was a lot of things going on outside of the football field, and yet he still came out and put on one of the top performances from any linebacker this year. So you feel good for him in that fact. But yeah, I mean, as a Ravens fan and as, someone looking towards the future, it does suck not having him next to Roquan if he does leave. And that will leave a big gap that then a guy like Trenton Simpson has to kind of cover up and fill. But, about your question, I think it is very possible. I would almost say that if Mike McDonald goes to a team like Seattle or Washington, I think it's very plausible that Patrick Queen follows him because that's where he's kind of grown into himself, is in this system.
Yeah, for sure. And especially Washington is a place where they have a lot of cap space. That would even make a lot of sense if McDonald were to get the job over a guy like Ben Johnson. But Kevin, wanted to bring in this part of this topic because for as much as everyone's talking about Patrick Queen, I feel like the player that Ravens fans really don't want to see leave because of the value of the position, so to speak, Justin Madubuike balled out. The dude was a wrecking ball. I mean, how realistic is it that they can hold on to Justin Madubuike? But it seems if they keep Madubuike, let me rephrase that. If they keep Madubuike, they are most certainly going to have to let a guy like Patrick Queen go.
Yeah, I think the only realistic way, and it's not even that realistic, honestly, is if you tag one of those guys and then work out some sort of a team-friendly extension. But neither of those guys are going to take a team-friendly extension because they have both earned lucrative contracts. And when you look at the franchise tag, there are a couple of different conversations that go into that. My personal opinion is Justin Madubuike, if he signs either a deal with the Ravens or a team with somebody else, he's probably going to clear upwards of $25 million annually. I just think he played that well. Now, the franchise tag for defensive tackles this year is 20.9. That's the projected. 20.9 million is the projected total. Does Justin Madubuike play on that 1 year deal and essentially re-enter the free agent pool next offseason when there's a chance that, look, this was an incredible year, one of the all-time years that we've seen from an interior pass rusher on the Ravens? Is there a chance he maybe takes a step back from a statistical perspective, or does he get injured? And if that happens, is his value going to be as high next season on the open market coming off of the franchise tag? So does he say, I don't want to play on the franchise tag because this is my opportunity to cash in? The only way that, I'm going to cash in on this season, this year, is to do it this offseason. With Patrick Queen, it's the same conversation with the franchise tag. If the Ravens decide to go there, the projected number for linebackers is $22.8 million. I think for Patrick Queen, that's maybe a little less than I expect him to get annually. But if the Ravens franchise tag him, it's almost the conversation that you talked about J.K. Dobbins a little bit there. If Patrick Queen gets franchised and gets injured, he said he has to do what's best for him. Long-term and financial stability with that. Long-term financial stability is what these players, I think that's the ideal goal for them, is to get on a 4-year deal, a 5-year deal. And if they get injured in one of those years, it's all right because they still have that financial flexibility where if on a franchise tag, there's a catastrophic injury, that's going to tank their value. Much like, look, we've seen J.K. Dobbins. We know the talent he is, but he's been injured, and that has essentially made his value, is he even going to come back to the Ravens on a cheaper deal? He's not going to get what he wanted in free agency because he has been injured. So with the Ravens and their free agents, I'll go through it. Matabike, Queen, Geno Stone, Clowney, Van Noy, Kevin Zeitler, Odell Beckham Jr., Gus Edwards, Ronald Darby, Dobbins, Arthur Millette, Nelson Aguilar, Tyler Huntley, Brent Urban are just some of the names that the Ravens have.
Thank God. I thought we were going to have a lot or something.
Can you repeat that list, Kevin, at the speed you just said it at?
I was
not
flying.
looking at it now.
You were flying.
No. Yeah, I was flying through it. But the Ravens, then this depends on the Odell deal because the Ravens restructured that. They have that hard deadline or else it's a $50 million cap hit for him, which I don't think the Ravens really want. So that's their hard decision. That's the reason they did it. But the Ravens do have options to clear up cap room. Right now, it's right around anywhere from like 13 to 15 million that they have right now, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously, this is before restructures and before maybe some cap casualties. Ronnie Stanley, you can free up about 9 million with a 17 million dead cap hit if you decide to go through there. Tyus Bowser, you can clear up about 5.5 million. Morgan Moses, about 5 million. So you can go through a bunch of these names, but there will be avenues for the Ravens to clear up cap room for them to bring back some of those guys. And maybe guys like Jadeveon Clowney say, you know what? I've made a lot of money in my career. I want to win a Super Bowl. I'm going to come back to the Ravens because that's the shot that I have. And I know I'm familiar with the system. And maybe the Ravens will get some guys on veteran minimum or close to it deals because they understand the opportunity to win and they want to finish the business.
Yeah. And I think that to your point, there's so many different variables. That's why I wanted to touch on it quickly because of all that, the ones that are going to take the most money is going to be Matabike, Patrick Queen, because of where they are at their age and trying to cash in. But who knows down the stretch? Because as we've seen, it wasn't just those players. They had sensational years. It's multiple players. If you look at that Ravens defense, so many players attributed to that success. But you want to keep the guys that you really want to if you can. But that's the name of the business.
We need to save Dr. Smelling Salts at all costs. It's Brent Urban.
Oh yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I was like Kevin, and I was like, oh.
I actually thought Dr. Smelling Salts was like, is what?
I thought he was about to pull out smelling salts.
I thought that was a brand of smelling
Ammonia
salts.
is his middle name.
We still need to do smelling salts.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
For getting over 4,000 subscribers, we are getting that planned. And Kevin and Nick Moore are going to do the Oklahoma drill as promised.
And
Hey, we're closer to 5,000 than we are 4,000.
And what are we doing at 5, Brad?
I don't know.
Well, are you involved in this? Are you going to do it?
No, I never signed up for this.
Come on. What are you going to sign up for? We got to sign you up for something.
I'm the one jumping out of a plane.
I want an incentive to get to 5,000, not a punishment.
That's fair. All right. You can watch us do the one chip challenge that's your incentive, I guess.
That's
us suffer through the show. We'll do it before a show.
So really Kevin has to get tackled by a professional football player while taking smelling salts. Rocco and Zach are going to put themselves through some pain.
Yeah.
And
Brad's going to watch.
Well, it's also going to be painful to be tackled by Nick Moore.
That's fine.
Oh, well, you know what? You're helping a player get back from his rehab. Rehabbing.
That is true.
Think of it as
I'm the final boss in Nick's recovery.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of does it. Joe, I see we're all rooting against the Chiefs. We'll dive into the Chiefs and 49ers down the road. I can't even think about the Super Bowl right now because it's just so it's just
too fresh.
I don't know.
What? Last poll.
Yeah.
Who plays the AFC Championship next year? I got Ravens, Chiefs, Chargers, Ravens, Texans, Chiefs, and Ravens, Bengals. And it was actually pretty even across the board. 41% said had Chiefs and Ravens, and then 28% want to see another Hardball Bowl.
That'd be electric. But
oh man, hold on, Zach.
That's my mom.
Exactly. So
No,
like,
my mom
listen, if
does
she's
not.
asking that, I might have to
Shave your
change
head
the
at
incentive.
5K.
Yeah, no.
I actually
not
didn't.
a
I
fan of-
actually say like we're gonna shave your head at like 5K
Yeah, no, at
or something
10K.
like that. Wow.
10K. We will.
10K. Yeah. So like you have to.
Yeah,
you know,
no. We'll get the.
You agree to that?
Yeah, no. At 10K,
Yeah.
we're definitely doing.
what's
Shout
the
out to the
You got
moms.
some lettuce hanging out of the back.
Shout out to
of
the
your head.
moms showing up on
the
those
mom,
things.
the moms,
Yeah.
the moms showing out for the program. We really appreciate it. I also
Mom,
have
stop
something.
using emojis in the chat.
Hey, how about like
awesome.
a full clean shave though? Like Kevin's got to shave his mustache. Same with
Oh,
Zach.
absolutely.
I'm
I
going
was-
to next week. It's
Exactly.
going away next week.
Are you doing it
Wow.
live on the Ryan Ripken show?
Do you want me
Ooh,
to?
yes.
I was going to before today for a clean start
Look, I'm-
after the.
Well, the reason I
barber
didn't
can
shave was
do it.
because everybody in the comments was like, "You can't shave until the Ravens lose, or else you're the bad
Yeah.
luck charm." So
Mhm.
that's why I
Yeah.
didn't do it.
Well,
That's
here's what
like-
you do.
I feel like Go ahead.
We hit 5,000, which will probly happen before opening day.
I would hope so.
Then,
Oh, I
Yeah,
very
so-
hope so.
but that's okay. So hear me out. We got a barber coming in, sponsors the show, whatever, or he just comes in, shaves Zach's entire face,
And head.
and he has to grow it out until the end of the season or until
Just-
the Orioles.
So we basically a playoff beard and hair, like
Correct, like
caveman
the
Zach.
Red Sox did that way back in 04 or something like that. Where
Yeah.
they all
Johnny
just,
Damon did.
yeah,
it,
they
right?
just grew out all their beards all the way up until they won.
Yeah,
Should totally do
it's
that.
insane. Yeah, you should.
I would have a
absolutely
nasty
do that.
neck beard, but
Yeah.
I'd have to.
Well,
keep
you
up
could-
with-
you
Yeah,
could
no, I got it. I would have
Clean
to.
it up a little bit.
I feel like I'm the
I
only
don't know.
one in this room.
Yeah, we'll
or in
just
this-
have
on the show that
Rocco.
has ever seen a razor in my life. You have facial hair, but you
Oh,
groom yours. Yours
save
looks
it.
like-
I have
will
no
be-
facial
He
hair.
looks like a bum. Zach looks like Zach, and then
Yeah,
Kevin.
thank you. I'll take
Kevin's
that.
just
I
like
had no
letting his
facial
grow
hair
out.
for the first 25 and a half years of my life.
Yeah.
What we also learned today is that 86% of our community folds their toilet
I was gonna say.
Oh man,
I'm
Yeah,
so
you-
glad we
you
got
and I
back
are
to
in
that.
the we're in the minority there, right? As far as the
I'm not a baller.
oh, you're not a baller. It was Zach who was a baller, right?
No, I'm fold.
Oh man, I'm the only one who doesn't fold. That's wow. Sorry guys. Anyway,
It's not okay.
I feel.
Hey, Kevin, are you a baller?
Folder.
Ah, see,
Oh, this is so. This really just came back.
this is the content you came here for.
And on that note, this was fun. This was interesting, a little bit
Forgot you did that
overwhelming.
poll.
Happy
let's-
50th episode.
Happy 50th episode. This is the Ryan Ripken Show. This is our 50th. We have a lot more planned. Overs, congrats, Brandon, for that. I'm happy for you.
I am
But
too.
so we'll talk a lot more about the Ravens, and we're going to touch in the baseball as we're moving closer here into the spring. We got so much planned for you guys, and I'm excited. It should be a great time. We had Sam and Joker from Ravens talk earlier. We got Kevin Ostreicher right there. We have Rocco back in the studio. He found it. It was hard.
Yeah, he actually remembered to show up this time.
Yeah. Well, and then with Zach and Brad, we are all active
I don't know
on.
why I just did that. I just had to for no reason.
Oh, okay.
You gotta have
That's
your
our.
signature outro. Mine is the like the salute.
Yeah, I'm very.
Are you
I don't know.
fucking-
Can someone
When,
clip that?
Yeah, well, we're clipping a lot of this.
Yeah.
Kevin, what the fuck was that?
I do this every time. You can go back and clip me doing it.
He said, "Yeah."
fuck Kevin Ostreicher.
I don't even need a
highlights.
poll for this. Kevin is the biggest nerd on the show.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's
No, there has to be poll proof that that's true. There has to be poll proof.
If it's not a poll, then it's not a real thing.
Do you-
So-
would you-
yes,
would you-
yes.
So I'll put a poll up exactly like Kevin. I'll put all of us except for Kevin, and I'll
Yeah.
say, nope,
See,
you're all wrong.
now
with
you're
Kevin.
yes. Brad, I think I did a good job. I was just happy that Rocco turning the power out won that poll.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Which didn't even happen. That was
Rocco does a lot of things that people don't fully understand, including talk about shaving rock. But anyway, let's get out of here. Guys, we appreciate every single one of you for tuning in. For our regulars that are here with us, it seems like every single show, thank you. For the new ones to the show, hit that like and subscribe button. We will be back on Thursday for another edition of the Ryan Ripken Show. But until then, have a day, have a night, and you enjoy yourself. We will see you soon for another edition of the Ryan Ripken Show.
Bobby Boucher, it's your daddy, Roboito.